Hello, we are testing the interpreting booth. Can anybody hear me?
In the room, and many of you following us online through the streaming. Before we go into the heart of the matter, our conference has interpretation in Spanish available, so you can connect to the Kudo app or to the Kudo function on your computer. So if you haven't downloaded it on your computer before, do so. You received a link from the organizers, and what you need to do is that you enter your name, your email, and then just click on Join the Meeting, and interpretation in Spanish will be available. We also have a hashtag for today, so it's hashtag INNOSETA BE, INNOSETA BE, all in one word. And that's for your social media. So feel free to join us online. I've seen already a few Twitter posts, so keep on the good work and make us trending. As you all know, INNOSETA wants to look at how we can find opportunities for a greener agriculture. And it was launched 3 years ago A lot of work has been done. The project is now coming to an end, but the goal 3 years ago was really to accelerate innovative practices for spraying equipment, training, and advising. And that's all in the context of European agriculture. So as I said, the project is coming to a close, but a lot of work has been accomplished. The targets have been achieved, which is not always the case with projects, so I think we can congratulate ourselves on that. And INNOSETA originally aimed to close the gap between, on the one hand, the novel high-end crop protection solutions, and on the other hand, the daily use by agriculture or by farmers, by agriculture producers and in agriculture practices. To do so, to bridge that gap, INNOSETA set up a self-sustainable network on spraying equipment, training and advising. And the network has built up over those 3 years to the point that now more than 1,000 entries have been gathered in a platform and under the auspices of INNOSETA. The entries, the over 1,000 entries, list all the innovative techniques, the research and the material which farmers can already avail of. So it's a huge source of resources for them. The next steps will be to promote the idea, to exchange ideas, to exchange practices and information between all the various stakeholders, between research, industry, extension services, and of course, the farming community. So, as I said, progress has clearly been made. There's been quite a lot of achievements over the last 3 years. It's now essential for the policies that are being discussed, the Green Deal, the Farm-to-Fork strategy, the biodiversity strategy. It's really essential for them to take that progress into account as they are further developed. And having set the background against which we're going to work, I think we can now look today at the results that have already been obtained and also at some of these upcoming developments or future possibilities. This is exactly what we're going to do. And in order to help us set the scene and the general context, I'm going to invite our two members of the Parliament who are joining us this morning. They'll be joining us online, or at least to start with, and Mrs. Aguilera will hopefully be able to join us in person a little later on today. So I would like to now give the floor to our host for today, Ms. Clara Aguilera, member of the European Parliament, and also, of course, a well-known member of the Parliament's Agriculture Committee. Ms. Aguilera, buenos días. Is Ms. Aguilera with us? Okay, Ms. Aguilera, could you please request the floor so that we can see you in our Kudos app? Just a little technical glitch, but that should be solved very soon, hopefully. Yes, is Mr. Linz online, just in case, while Ms. Aguilera is joining us, is tuning in. Mr. Linz, are you there? So if we are waiting for Ms. Aguilera, I would like then, in the meantime, to welcome Mr. Norbert Linz, who's also a member of the European Parliament and chairman of the Agri Committee. Mr. Linz, are you there?
I'm there.
Yeah. Yes, good morning, Mr. Linz. Yeah. Over to you then.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, Mr. chill, so it's no problem to do my speech before my colleague Clara Aguilera. So, dear ladies and gentlemen, as politicians, we want to shape the future by encouraging ideas, incentivizing innovation, and by creating a policy framework which makes our world future-proof. I'm very excited that today's event by INNOSETA proves that there are many ideas out there that will help to make the world, especially the agriculture sector, more sustainable, economically, environmentally, and socially. It is clear that there is a need for transition to more robust food systems, using innovative techniques with more sustainable use of natural resources. To accomplish it, we need all actors across the value chain, not only in the EU, but also globally. I'm happy that today we can talk about opportunities for a greener European agriculture. The international INNOSETA project has brought over 1,000 technical solutions, training materials, and information materials together. This will make the use of plant protection products safer for appliers, more sustainable for the environment, and will provide a sustainable harvest level. The European Green Deal pursues wide-ranging actions to make Europe climate neutral by 2050. Within its flagship strategy, we mentioned that before, the Farm to Fork strategy addresses the challenges of sustainable food systems. The goals are ambitious. Our farmers need all the options to meet the targets. And this is why we should, in my opinion, think more about innovation than the targets themselves. Ladies and gentlemen, we are aware that the research and innovation are the key drivers in accelerating any transition. For the Green Deal to be a success, we also need a digital Green Deal. We all know that with increasing digitization and precision techniques, we can protect our environment by decreasing the use of fertilizers and pesticides without negatively impacts on yields. It should never be a question of either or, and rather how do we protect our environment and climate while guaranteeing food security and production in Europe. The challenge is, however, that this requires increasing capital costs of younger farmers plus installations and holdings investments. As politicians, we need to support and incentivize these investments. The current CAP will incentivize digital solutions and investments. But I also call on the Commission to take digital solutions and innovation into account when presenting the revision of the sustainable use of pesticides directive. It is not sustainable to solely reduce plant protection products. We should focus on alternatives, safer application, and integrated pest management. And this requires a comprehensive toolbox for farmers. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish you a good conference with constructive discussions and innovative ideas. And congrats to all participations of your project. I wish you all the best and the greatest success. Thank you very much.
Connect with Ms. Aguilera. Ms. Aguilera, can you hear us? Hello? Okay, so I can still see Mr. Linz. No, he's gone now, so I'd love to see Miss Aguilera. If not, we can move on to the next part and try to connect with Miss Aguilera in the meantime. So that might help the connection. So we're going to jump ahead a little bit on our program, and I would like to invite the coordinator of INNOSETA, not INNOSETA as I've been saying. I suppose I was... Well, clearly I rubbed off on Mr. Linz. I suppose it's the innovation part that triggers that tongue twist. Anyway, I'm happy to welcome the coordinator of the program. So I'd like to present Professor Emilio Gil from the Universitat Politécnica de Catalunya, who is going to tell us a little more about the actual inception and developments in INNOSETA. Good morning, Emilio, and yes, you're also getting connected, although you're live with us, but there we are.
It works, yes. I thought it was INNOSETA, but now it's INNOSETA. It's nice. Anyway, perfect. Thanks to everyone for being here. Again, for most of you, we already had the opportunity to met yesterday, but there are some new faces, so thank you. It's a real pleasure for me to give some words about the INNOSETA project and the results. And as we are not going to have a final result, any particular presentation in detail about the results, so I will give you some words or some ideas. But the first is that, in our opinion, the future of agriculture is based in present. So that was our main concern when we started this nice adventure concerning the INNOSETA. And what's happened with farmers right now, what happened with this is more or less this one. No? Most of farmers, they are using this, some tools and new devices and digital tools, but there is still a lot of things to do in order to guarantee that all the farmers are able to use materials or devices as satellites. Everybody is talking about satellites, but how many farmers that are really able to use images from satellites or new apps or smart sprayers or the online education at the end. So there is a gap still, as Florence said, there is a gap between research and farmers, and that was the main idea when we started this project. Some years ago, I wrote a kind of history. It's a fiction history. I'm a writer in my free time. And I was talking about this Carlos and this farmer trying to find something in the network. No? And he became crazy after a couple of hours looking through internet, looking for some specific recommendations and specific nozzles and so on. I'm not going to read the text because, you have in this. But at the end, the question is, or the history ends with, okay, I will do what as much better I could, but I know there are a lot of things into the network, but it's not easy to arrive at. And that's the reason why we started INNOSETA project. And the INNOSETA project is, so we are talking about a lot of training. Language is sometimes a difficulty for farmers. Not all farmers speak English, and most of the material is already in English. So adoption of new technologies, knowledge about the legislation and accomplishment of the legislation. We are talking about sustainability, digitalization and subsidize, food safety, knowledge, small farms as well, not only for, sometimes some farmers say, oh, okay, this is precision farming is only for big farmers, big farms, not for me. But at the end, all farmers need support. All farmers need to accomplish the Green Deal, the Farm to Fork strategy, the Sustainable Use Directive, and everything. So all small farmers, medium farmers, and big farmers. So that we decided to start this amazing project, combining a huge and very lovely consortium represented by universities, research centers, authorities, advisors, representatives from manufacturers, from the sprayer manufacturers, representatives from farmers, and we started to work in this INNOSETA project that we are arriving to the end. Unfortunately, we suffered, as everyone already did it, this COVID situation, and most of our activities changed a lot in the meantime, but we have been able to arrive to the end with success, more or less, because we firmly believe that Europe is the key. So all together we can do really good things in this. And this is what we did. And I'm very proud I will officially present the video we already produced about INNOSETA. But first, let me give you some ideas, some data about what we have been able to achieve. Concerning the INNOSETA platform, as David already and Fabrizio presented yesterday, more than 1,000 entries we have been able to collect here at the INNOSETA platform in different languages, 8 different languages, and divided in industry solutions, articles, projects, and training materials. It is nice to see, or it's important to have how industry solutions are the most relevant in terms of visits, and also training material. And this is also important. The most visited, the optimized and precision spraying. All the stakeholders are talking about precision spraying. Drift is one of the key words that has been dealt with, and bush and tree crops sprayers, specialty crops, the most difficult part. So this is a kind of database really to use, and we think that is really useful. Concerning other activities, and led by our friend and colleague Sebastian Codis from EFB from France, unfortunately, or fortunately, he's not here because he has a very good excuse. He has waiting for his second child. So, but we organized a lot of regional workshops in close collaboration with all the stakeholders, face-to-face, till the arrival of COVID, and mixing farmers, advisors, local authorities, manufacturers, and so on. So, and from that experience, we obtained a lot of useful information, in the sense that we have been able to create some policy briefs led by our partners from THEMA, and you will have the opportunity to see in detail, but in general, training is the key. Farmers are looking for training. Also, some kind of, let's say, harmonization, no? In many aspects, many different aspects. There is no sense to have big differences among different countries in Europe. And this is just a brief resume of some policy brief about the training and education, right? So the stage of the advisory service of the future, demonstrate and share the knowledge. We need some harmonization of legislation at EU level. In general, it's been detected a lack of common risk mitigation measurements, investment for support, applied research. So we are, as our researchers, we are looking for to be considered as the same level as the first, let's say, first category researchers, because research in agriculture is also important. Yeah? And unfortunately, there is still a disconnection of consumers from farming realities. We made a nice surveys led by our colleagues from AUA, and we detected why farmers are not able to adopt new technologies. And the most important reasons is because due to high cost, and on the other side, land is too small. It means that I'm a small farmer, precision farming is not for me, and this is a mistake. But we need to train them that precision farming doesn't imply mandatory to invest in a GPS or to buy a satellite. Some other aspects can be considered as precision farming as well. And this is something that is really, really useful. not only the platform, but the main messages received from all the stakeholders. We have been able to detect some really interesting case studies you can download, you can see on the website. So good examples of combination of different stakeholders using technology, using knowledge to achieve the main objectives. And one of the main objectives is to use the pesticides in a proper way, and at the end to reduce pesticides. Remember the farm to fork strategy, reduce 50% by 2030. So you have here 5 real examples of how to do that. So this is what we did in a general overview in our INNOSETA project, which is close to the end. And what we are doing from now is try to see the opinion from other people outside of the project and continue enjoying this day. Thank you for the attention, and Florence, thank you.
Thank you, Emilio. Sorry, I need to switch back on. Thank you, Emilio. Sorry, we have an echo problem, so I have to switch my mic on and off as I move. So we're going to move ahead with the program. Miss Aguilera, I understand, is going to be with us around 10 o'clock, so we can ask her to do her little introductory presentation at that time. And we're going to just go ahead with the rest of our program while she's on her way. So thanks a lot, Emilio, for sharing the general presentation of the project and some of the outcome. We're going to come back to that later. But I would like now to invite the 2 representatives of the European Commission to present their experience of INNOSETA from their end. And for that, I'm inviting Ms. Gisela Quaglia, who's Research Program Officer at DG Agri, and Mr. Klaus Behrendt, who's Head of Unit for Pesticides and Biocides at DG Health and Food Safety, both of them from the Commission. Good morning to both of you. If you would like to come to our panel. And I think we have microphones for you. Oh, do you want to stand at the panel? Very good. So, go ahead, Gisela.
So, can you put my slides on the screen, please? Okay. So, good morning, everyone. So, my name is Gisela Quaglia, and I work in DG Agri in the unit that deals with research and innovation. I would like to thank Emilio and INNOSETA for this invitation. I have prepared a short presentation related to the topic of this meeting to propose opportunities for a green European agriculture. So we have several research and innovation actions for sustainable agriculture in support to the farm to fork strategy. As I must start mentioning the European Green Deal, that is our strategy for a sustainable growth. So the European Green Deal will turn climate and environmental challenges into opportunities across all policy areas and making this transition just for all. But in the European Green Deal, we have this flagship initiative that is the farm to fork strategy that leads to intends to address the challenges of sustainable food systems and recognize the link between healthy people, healthy societies, and a healthy planet. So, the European Green Deal has set some targets, ambitious targets for farmers, foresters, and rural communities who are the immediate manager of natural resources and the backbone of food systems. So we ask farmers to reduce the use of pesticides, to increase the area of organics, to increase the area of diverse farming. So we can think these targets as just the direction that we need to follow, and we can think this as an opportunity for innovation, as Norbert Litz just mentioned. So research and innovation are a key source of new knowledge and solutions that enabling and accelerating the progress required to achieve these challenging targets. And the need of knowledge, innovation, and digitalization, it's also reflected in the new CAP, that it was introduced a cross-cutting objective of fostering knowledge exchange, innovation, and digitalization in agriculture and rural areas. So this highlights the role of research and innovation in delivering on the economic, environmental, and social dimension of sustainable agriculture. So the next slide, please. So we know the strategy, we know what we want to achieve, so we need to transform this into action. Since 2014, DG Agri has taken a leading role in programming and implementing agriculture research. We follow a strategic approach to EU agriculture research and innovation that we published a document in 2016 that was our main strategy at that time, that has set the orientations for Horizon 2020 projects. We can see on the figure that we aim to have healthier plants and livestock, also to interconnect with resource management and integrated ecological approaches from farm to landscape. So all these priority areas are interconnecting, and they represent challenges and areas that we need to find solutions. In the next slide, please. So we have put two strategies to work together. So two European policies have been working in close synergy since 2014. In one side, we have the Common Agriculture Policy through the European Innovation Partnership for Agriculture Productivity and Sustainability, also known as EIP Agri, and working together with the research and innovation framework that we have, Horizon 2020, and Horizon Europe currently working. So we see in the figure with the blue arrows how there is a lot of connection and collaboration between Horizon 2020 projects and EIP Agri activities. We have multi-actor projects. That means that different actors in the value chain, in the food chain, are working together. So it's not only researchers, but farmers, advisors, SMEs. We also have from the EIP Agri operational group that follows the same approach, multi-actor approach. So we put together different actors that they cooperate to find solutions to certain issues. Among these type of projects in Horizon 2020, we have the thematic network that INNOSETA is a clear example of this kind of project, that they compile knowledge, they gather research and innovation, and put this knowledge ready for practice, including training to the advisors and farmers. So this approach allow us to better take into account the needs of practitioners, as well as speed up the adoption of these innovations in the ground. Next slide, please. So as a result, what we have achieved so far is quite a lot. We have funded 315 projects, that is almost 1.9 billion euros in Horizon 2020 related to agriculture, 190 Horizon 2020 multi-action projects, including 29 thematic networks that are this type of projects that translate the knowledge to the practitioners and to the farmers to be adopted. And in the EIP Agri, member states has implemented over 2,000 operational groups. And well, it's not so visible, the titles, but we have been working in agriculture in a variety of fields, as you can imagine, from genetic resources, plant health, animal health, digitalization, ecological approach. So the scope of agriculture research is quite broad. Next slide, please. So I would like to make a focus on plant health topics, because we are here. INNOSETA is related to the application of pesticides, and we use pesticides to keep our plants and crops healthy. So under Horizon 2020, we had funded over 30 projects that are specifically related to plant health, pesticides, trying to find solutions for farmers to keep their crops healthy and to, at the same time, reduce the use of pesticides. You can see here the variety or the constellation of logos from the different projects in the past 7 years. Some of these projects are still running because the Horizon 2020 finished last year, but projects are still ongoing. And several of these projects are multi-actor, so we are sure that the farmers' needs are considered in the needs of the research and innovation. Next slide, please. But today's talk is about to find opportunities, and well, this is a great opportunity. Horizon Europe is our new research framework program that has started this year. So it's built on the success of Horizon 2020. If we can go to the next slide. It still has the same structure, so we have 3 pillars. And the second pillar, its focus is on global challenges and European industrial competitiveness. In this pillar, we found research and innovation that tackles different societal challenges and to reinforce also the technological and industrial capacities. The pillar has 6 clusters. The last one, cluster 6, is related to food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture, and environment. And we have a budget, an estimated budget of 9 billion euros for the cluster for the next 7 years. So this means a lot of opportunities for research and innovation in the near future. Next slide. So we need to transform policy priorities, as we saw at the beginning for the Green Deal, the Farm to Fork, and also the priorities that the farmers have into research and innovation activities. So one novelty in Horizon Europe is the strategic plan that sets the strategic lines that we will follow for the first 4 years. The Commission has adopted the Strategic Plan 21-24 in March this year, and this allows us to then program research and set up work programs with a clear direction and clear priorities of what we need to achieve with the different projects. Next slide. And with a little focus on what is expected for Cluster 6, the one that is related to agriculture and natural resources, we have for these periods, for the first strategic plan, 6 expected impact. So we want to maximize research and the impact of research and innovation in the areas of climate neutrality and adaptation to climate change, preservation and restoration of biodiversity and ecosystems, sustainable and circular management of natural resources, tackling pollution, bioeconomy, in the impact related to, directly related to the farm-to-fork strategy, we expect to have impact on food and nutrition security for all within planetary boundaries that is ensured through knowledge, innovation, digitalization in agriculture, fisheries, aquaculture and food system, which are sustainable, resilient, inclusive, safe and healthy from farm to fork. Quite challenge. It's very, very challenging what we want to achieve with research and innovation in this cluster. Finally, we also have an impact on balanced development of rural, coastal, and urban areas, and innovative governance models enabling sustainability and environmental observations. So within this cluster, in the next slide, please, I will make again a focus on plant health, where you can find we have three calls open for the Work Program 22 that are very related to the use of pesticides, and we organize calls to help the farmers or to help to develop also policy that will help us to reduce the use of pesticides, but at the same time keeping our crops healthy. That's the main focus. So I would like to invite the stakeholders that are interested on submit proposals, that have a look in the funding and tender opportunities. And just yesterday we have our info days where we have provide more detail on these calls, and the videos are going to be available online soon. And next and final slide, I think that the role of research and innovation to tackle all these challenges is quite clear, and that to speed up the deployment and adoption, we need projects like INNOSETA, and we also need projects on research to translate practice and to make the knowledge available for practitioners and farmers that will help us to achieve the targets that we want to achieve in 2030. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gisela. We'll now invite Klaus Behren to take the floor. Klaus is from DG Health and Food Safety. Just a little technical fine-tuning, and we'll get there.
Paula, can you accept the presenter to the floor? Yeah. Sorry, no problem. You can do it from your computer.
So some connection from one end of the room to the other. Which means you folks online will eventually also be able to see the presentation.
I'm going to go ahead and do this so we can see your face. Share your screen.
There we are. That's it.
Thank you.
you.
Yes, good morning to everybody, and thank you for the help to getting this going. And it wouldn't be a virtual meeting, or in this case a hybrid meeting, if there weren't some glitches of some kind in the IT or the connections or whatever we already experienced this morning. So before starting, I would first of all like to thank the organizers for inviting me, but even more my colleagues Eric Liégeois and Monica Garcia Aguilar, who are sitting over there, and who have accompanied this project over the years. Monica, I think, even more than Eric. And they have also prepared the slides for me that you are going to see. So let me start by first reminding us of the legal situation for the control of pesticides use in the EU, which basically covers the entire life cycle from the placing on the market and use until the residues that you find on the crops that are produced. And for this, we have two key pieces of legislation: the regulation on the placing on the market, 1107/2009, and the regulation on residue levels, the maximum residue levels in food commodities, and both are under the responsibility of my unit in DG Santé. But in between there's more. You have, in particular, the requirement that the member states must authorize every use of pesticides. And then, of course, there is the Sustainable Use Directive from 2009, which covers the actual use by the farmers of the pesticides that have been authorized by the member states. And I think the work done by INNOSETA has very much to do with the implementation of the Sustainable Use Directive, but also with our regulation on the placing on the market and use, and I'll come to that in a few minutes. But first, as a reminder again, and you heard it already this morning several times, the Farm to Fork strategy sets out the Commission's ambitions as regards a reduction of the risk and use of chemical pesticides. And I really want to emphasize this combination of risk and use, because too simplistically, many stakeholders only refer to use. So they simply say reduce the volume of pesticides that are being used and we get there. But that's not exactly correct, because the properties of the substances are very different. And one substance that is used in very high quantities might cause much lower risks than another substance that is used in very low volume. So for us, this combination of use and risk is very important. But in addition, there's the second target of a 50% reduction of the more hazardous pesticides. And these are what are known under the PPP regulation, these so-called candidates for substitution. And here we can indeed target the volume, because we know that they have difficult hazardous properties. So two targets in the Farm to Fork strategy. And of course, the first one, which is, I would say, the overarching one, has these two components: avoid use where possible, and here the Sustainable Use Directive has the key role, thinking in particular about the implementation of integrated pest management, where farmers have to, first of all, tolerate a certain level of pest infection in their crops, and then when treatment is necessary, use other alternatives that are not chemicals, biological ones, in particular the ones containing microorganisms, for example, and only then take recourse to chemical pesticides. And around, of course, are strategies and management tactics to avoid pest infection to begin with, such as crop rotation. And then the second component, the risk reduction, is where risk mitigation measures come into play. These are techniques that are possible to reduce risks to either humans or the environment from the use of authorized pesticides. And on this slide, we have tried to depict the situation that when we make the risk assessments for active substances prior to their approval, or the member states make risk assessments prior to the authorization of products, they can and should take into consideration possible risk mitigation measures that reduce exposure and hence reduce the risk, and then allow in the end authorization of products, or in our case approval of active substances that might otherwise not pass the bar of the required level of protection. So to understand what is happening in reality in the field, we need to have the knowledge about which risk mitigation measures are available and which ones are also realistically used by farmers. And then we can incorporate their effects and their impacts on exposure and on ultimately the risk in our risk assessments that are done prior to the approval of substances or prior to the authorization of products. And in some cases, we actually are required, or we feel that it's necessary to make the use of certain risk mitigation measures mandatory in the approval of active substances or in the authorization of products. And a very prominent example that has probably that many of you are aware of were the restrictions that we enacted in 2018 for the neonicotinoid substances to restrict them to permanent greenhouses only in order to avoid exposure of bees and other pollinators in fields. And there are indeed many different kinds of risk mitigation measures that we can consider and that the member states can consider in this process. And they are all beautifully assembled on this slide that Monica and Eric composed. And the one that is probably, that is of course of most interest for you in the context of INNOSETA, the ones are the various spraying methods and machinery and application equipment that you see on this slide. But we should not forget that there are others, such as, for the users, of course, the immediate users, protective equipment, or buffer zones next to aquatic surface waters, or hedges to avoid that drift gets into surface waters, in addition to whatever can be done for the spraying techniques. So in January 2020, in the pre-COVID times, actually our last meeting in pre-COVID times that we organized, we had a workshop with member states, with academia, with EFSA, to discuss with them and explore what kind of risk mitigation measures are actually used and imposed by member states when they grant product authorizations. And on this slide you have the list that was identified, and the numbers in the right column indicate the number of the member states that actually use them more or less regularly and impose them more or less regularly. And the top one are the buffer zones, so keep no spray zones of a certain breadth along surface waters, or in some member states also from residents and bystanders. It's a bit further down in the list because it isn't used that often. But France, for example, is the most prominent one that passed even a law requiring for every PPP a minimum distance to residential areas. And then in the second place, indeed, come the drift reduction nozzles, which are part of the spraying equipment discussion that we are having today and that your project was all about, vegetated buffer strips, and so forth. Some member states also consider a reduction of the frequency of use or a reduction of the maximum dose per hectare as risk mitigation measures. And I think that is also fair to say. And we have some examples where we approved active substances with conditions such as you can only use this substance once every 3 years on the same field because of concerns of possible seepage into groundwater, for example. And then also mentioned is the training of users, and here I think what the member states meant is not the general training, that is also part of your INNOSETA project, but very specific training linked to very specific substances, such as soil fumigants, for example, where only highly specialized users are allowed to then actually apply them. The workshop then also looked at the questions of what are the challenges to make use and an effective use of such risk mitigation measures. And first of all, and on this slide you have the different components of that. There's the technical side, so the confidence and the knowledge about how effective such measures are in reducing exposure. Then there is the economic component, and Emilio already mentioned that, the investment by farmers to get new equipment, for example, new application equipment, versus possible losses. If buffer zones are imposed, the broader the buffer zones, and it was also mentioned by Emilio already, the more difficult it is, in particular for smallholders and small farms, to actually implement them. Then from our side and from the side of the member states authorities, we need to have the knowledge, the exact knowledge about how the use of a certain risk mitigation measure influences the outcome of the risk assessment. And then, of course, the other question that always comes into mind, how realistic is it that farmers will make use of these measures? So are they aware and do they know how to use them, in addition to the economic considerations that I already mentioned? And in order to solve these challenges, the workshop also came up with some ideas and suggestions that I think are also reflected for a part in the INNOSETA project. So the first intention that we have is to establish a list of harmonized risk mitigation measure or harmonized effectiveness of risk mitigation measures. So agree among all the risk assessors of the member states and EFSA how effective they are in reducing exposure, and how this can be verified also through appropriate testing in case a company develops a new method, so that it's possible to also bring it into this catalog of harmonized and recognized measures. Then, of course, what support is available for farmers to make the necessary investments to use certain techniques, and here, of course, the various CAP instruments come into play. And then for us as the regulators, again, we need then to incorporate these harmonized effectiveness of the risk mitigation measures into our procedures for risk assessment and into the necessary guidance documents, so that applicants, when they apply for approval or for authorization of products, that they can already present scenarios where such measures are used and then propose themselves that they would be required for an authorization. And last but not least, the users of the measures then need to get the necessary training in order to be able to correctly use the technologies. So to make this link between the risk assessors and the risk managers and the actual users, we are of the opinion that the knowledge about the risk management, risk mitigation measures should be considered in the risk assessment in a quantitative way wherever that is possible, and should be clearly described in applications for approval or authorization of products by the producers of the plant protection products. As said, we should be convinced, and the risk managers need to be convinced, that the measures are feasible and controllable in practice, and that they are available and really accepted also by the users, because there's no point in authorizing a product under the condition that this and this and this and this is applied in practice, and in reality it's not happening. And then, of course, we would all fool ourselves. As mentioned, and I think INNOSETA has a strong component on this, the training, the knowledge about technologies and what is available is really important. And we would like to support that also by offering a training course under the Better Training for Safer Food program of DG Santé, where building a lot on the work that INNOSETA has done, we are developing a so-called e-learning course, so that everybody can themselves do the training wherever they are and at the time that is suitable for them. And this training intends to look at the various aspects that are displayed on this slide. And we are really grateful for the groundwork that has already been done by INNOSETA when it comes to spraying technologies, and it will certainly find its place in this Better Training for Safer Food course that is being developed. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention and like to congratulate indeed Emilio and his partners for this project that will contribute and has laid the groundwork for a very important component when it comes to increasing the safety of the use of pesticides. And I hope that somehow it will be possible to keep your platform alive and develop it further, because there will be innovation, there will be new technologies coming, and they should also be incorporated over time into the database so that they are available for users. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Klaus. Thank you. So we will now be showing you a video, and I would maybe invite Klaus and his colleague to go back to their seats, otherwise you're not going to be able to see what's on the screen, or you're going to be twisting your neck and it's going to be very uncomfortable. So you can come back to our main table afterwards for the debate. In order to introduce the video, I'm going to welcome back Emilio Gil, who's the coordinator of INNOSETA. And for those of you who are following us online, you will have received a link to the YouTube channel via the chat. So you just click on the link and you'll get straight to the video, which you're going to be watching now. But before that, Emilio, there you are, you will tell us a little more about this video and why it's there and what's in it. So.
Thank you, Gisela. Sorry. For most of you, you had the opportunity to see yesterday the video, but this is especially this passage for you, Gisela, Klaus, Pedro, and also Eric. You're here. Thank you for coming. As I already mentioned yesterday, what we did is just in the opposite as the most European projects, that at the starting point, they produce very nice videos to promote the project. What we did is at the end of the project. So once we have the information, once we have the experience, we try to create a kind of film, a kind of history. It will take probably some extra time, it's close to 20 minutes, but we collaborate with a very professional for this matter, and it has been a very pleasant job, activity recording in different locations all around Europe. I learned a lot, and I can guarantee you that just being able to obtain a couple of minutes of video here, we spend a full day recording. So I hope you will enjoy the video. And just before to give the floor for you to enjoy it, let me give you some announcement. I'm very happy. Klaus already mentioned these BTSF training courses. I'm glad to tell you that I'm involved, and some of us, we are already involved in those BTSF. With my friend Paolo Balsari, we started in 2015 or 16 with those BTSF training courses with a very nice experience and face-to-face training courses. And I'm very glad to tell you that I'm the coordinator. I'm trying to coordinate this e-learning on BTSF and risk mitigation. We have been working. So I can guarantee that INNOSETA will be in this BTSF activity. So enjoy the video and we will chat later on. Thank you.
Knowledge is only born from cooperation and solidarity between people and territories. An idea that brings together the European Union on firm foundations. Its nations and regions believe in sustainable development and in the search for empirical answers as a path leading to a green, innovative and digital agriculture. The challenge is to get knowledge flowing through the continent and from Europe, which is the key to turning it into universal knowledge. This journey began 4 years ago. It was then when a barrier to access consultancy and training sources and spraying equipment was detected.
All information bygger ju i princip på spannmålsodling och eftersom att vi har så mycket specialgrödor
lo que hacemos es ir a internet, a San Google, metemos ahí lo que queremos buscar y claro, ahí te viene pues toda la información.
L'innovazione dell'agricoltura fra meccanizzazione e tecnologia digitale avrebbe bisogno di strumenti di raccordo fra la conoscenza scientifica.
This challenge for farmers, small manufacturers, and regional institutions landed finally in the European Union, and it was the Polytechnic University of Catalonia that coordinated a goal: the creation of the INNOSETA network to connect ideas and knowledge. This is the story of how a cooperation path has been woven, because Europe is the key. Big necessities bring about small revolutions. Ana Lafita is a professional farmer from Rivas, a village in the Spanish region of Aragon. In the summer of 2017, she was facing the challenge of treating 24 hectares of olive trees with plant protection products that had to comply with the organic oil seal regulation that she was trying to produce. Reaching those standards was not an easy job. She found that there was not reliable and direct access to the technical information required to make the right decisions. The lack of confidence prevents professionals from moving forward.
La verdad es que yo, como imagino que la mayoría de agricultores o usuarios, lo que hacemos es ir a internet, a San Google, metemos ahí lo que queremos buscar y claro, ahí te viene pues toda la información, ya sea técnica o no, y entonces tienes que ir seleccionando pues un poco la información según tu criterio de lo que consideras que más o menos es de lo que estás buscando. Y sí que es verdad que pierdes mucho tiempo pues ir abriendo muchos enlaces hasta que das con esa información.
More than 2,700 kilometers away from Rivas, the same problem came up. In the Swedish village of Sjötorp, John Gransbo farmed cauliflower, cabbage, celery and potato on his 1,500 hectares of land. Little information about specific spraying equipment for these special crops was available. Whenever he had to seek information, the internet was his source and, similar to the Spanish farmer, he already knew that a much more efficient method was necessary.
Att själva internetanvändningen är ju enkel, men det är ju var man ska leta ju. All information bygger ju i princip på spannmålsodling och eftersom att vi har så mycket specialgrödor och specialodlingar är ju det är inte så vanligt ju och därför är det väl ännu mindre information man kan hitta där ju till just det vi sysslar med. Så det kan man väl sakna finns på det där man letar.
The first attempt to find a solution took place in Spain at the head office of the Agricultural Mechanization Unit of the Polytechnic University of Catalonia. In autumn 2017, a group of researchers, machinery manufacturers, civil servants and farmers met face to face and online in order to decide what should be done. A useful tool needed to be developed that was capable of gathering and spreading all the technical information about crop protection equipment and that could share this information throughout the continent.
And I had the idea or some idea in the few months ago, in the last weeks, what I realized is that in general, the stakeholders, say farmers or advisors or manufacturers as you, they have no idea or they have very low possibilities to reach the available materials. I don't know what kind of solution. So, Eskil, you had some suggestion or what? Is the same problem there in Sweden?
Yes. We have the same problem. It's a small country. We have few importers of spray equipment and advisory material is very few. We have actually no real manufacturers also in Sweden. So farmers, they come to us who are advisors and try to get information and they try to search themselves, but it's confusing and you never know what is information material or what is advertising material, etc.
And also we have to consider that we have not so many as once, I can say, fair in the field where you can really see the machinery working and you can better understand how, in this case, the sprayers are performing the activities.
You're right, you're right. So we have here on board some manufacturers, in this case, a big manufacturer. So do you think it could be a useful tool for you as a manufacturer, as a kind of tool to disseminate your developments? Or
I feel that the demand in our industry is to have a tool to use all this massive information available and easy to select whatever the farmer is looking for. It's also important for the industry, I feel, to be able to offer all our tests and all our field demos and the testimonials that we can have from the day-to-day basis, and then collect it in one place, and as I was saying at the beginning, make it easy for them.
we have plenty of material, advising material, new developments from the industrial companies, but we need to do something to close the gap between the research and farmers. So Europe is the key. So all together we can produce something very useful, taking advantage from our personal relationships in years, from my colleagues, our colleagues from Italy, from Sweden, from Greece, from Belgium. What we are trying is to create a kind of consortium and to present a kind of idea where all the material already available could be really useful for the end users, the farmers at the end.
At the same time, on the Italian island of Sardinia, the idea of Europe as the key to achieving goals through cooperation between territories was also shared. Alghero is a coastal village in the north of the island that preserves a 16th century tower inherited from the Spanish presence there, and has promoted the expansion of olive tree growing throughout its history. Salvatore works for the Sustainability Service in Laore, which is the regional agency for agricultural development. After years of experience, he came to the same conclusion that was reached at the meeting in Barcelona: an efficient tool to bring together all the technical information about crop protection equipment was required, one that was easily accessible to agricultural professionals.
Progettare la gestione delle informazioni non è mai stato semplice, sia per le differenti caratteristiche del destinatario che per la quantità di nozioni e contenuti tecnici necessari all'assistenza tecnica in campo. Trasferire la grande quantità di informazioni a disposizione è sempre stato un aspetto piuttosto articolato. L'innovazione dell'agricoltura fra meccanizzazione e tecnologia digitale avrebbe bisogno di strumenti di raccordo fra la conoscenza scientifica e l'adozione delle migliori scelte tecniche disponibili sul mercato, che siano adottabili nelle specifiche realtà.
Bearing all these concepts in mind, Salvatore decided to talk to the researchers of the UPC from Barcelona. They had to find the suitable formula together.
Beh, c'è un sacco di lavoro. Io ho un'esigenza enorme, ma quella che credo poi sia un po' di tutti, di riuscire a raccogliere molte informazioni, perché l'agricoltore spesso mi chiede istruzioni, informazioni, e c'è una quantità enorme di queste informazioni, andrebbero probabilmente messe dentro un contenitore, vista la quantità, e magari organizzate.
Esatto, cosa stavamo discutendo con Elena, no?
Ma che cosa possiamo fare?
Cosa possiamo fare? È una domanda. Intanto abbiamo la direzione dell'obiettivo da raggiungere, che è quello di raccogliere, secondo me, molte informazioni, però andrebbero ordinate in qualche modo. Quindi non so se avete qualche idea che possa conciliare e poi farle arrivare agli operatori e a coloro che ne avrebbero bisogno in maniera più chiara, più logica, più consultabile.
Once the concept was given shape and the intentions were clear, a total of 15 members from 7 different countries decided to turn to the European institutions for help, and the committee supported them through the Research and Innovation Community Programme Horizon 2020. Europe was the key. With this funding, they developed an internet platform to group together and disseminate technical, training, and advisory knowledge about spraying equipment. The path of cooperation was progressing. Sometime later, the city of Barcelona hosted the presentation of the new website. The researchers, manufacturers, farmers, and institutional staff that came up with the initial idea gathered together to show the new tool to primary and industrial sector professionals. Gaining widespread support was essential, but beforehand, the new platform needed a name that expressed its initial goals.
The main objective and the main tool developed inside this project is the INNOSETA platform,
which resulted in the acronym Innovative Spraying Equipment.
INNOSETA platform. You can see there, we have been able to collect more than 1,000 materials, units, classified in 4 different topics or classes as industry solutions, projects at EU level and at national level, material for training or training material, and articles, but not scientific articles, but technical articles. For example, if you are interested in some tool for calibration purposes, this hardy calibration nozzle distance selector, just clicking there, you will have information, detailed information about this setup, the effects, the website of the manufacturer, and then by clicking there, you will have detailed information. So what we are using is already available and already public information. I don't know if you have any questions.
Mainly from the point of view of the manufacturers or people who is creating content, could you explain a little bit more detail the way to upload the information and the way that you process it, please?
So Jordi, thank you for your question. That's really the key point of the project. So we need your support. We need your input. You as a manufacturer, you are able to upload material. So just going through this the platform. First, you need to be registered. It's easy, of course, and then just follow the instructions. You have here already an instruction video. You will upload whatever material you consider. INNOSETA platform, we firmly believe that it's a very useful tool for manufacturers in general, either from the pesticides companies and especially for the sprayers and components section. In this case, because they are able to provide new technologies, new developments that unfortunately, in general, in most of the cases, it don't arrive to the end users. In fact, we have on board, as a partners of the project, THEMA, which is the European Association of Agricultural Machinery Manufacturers. We think that it's a good opportunity for them to demonstrate that they are able to produce good tools, good devices that are already available for the farmers.
¿Te ha gustado la reunión de hoy? Yo creo que ha tenido muy buen interés en agricultores, empresas.
Sí, la verdad es que sí, ha venido todos los que hemos convocado y creo que el proyecto les ha gustado. A ver qué pasa en otros países, no sé, cómo andarán por Europa.
Podemos preguntar, quizás a ver algún partner.
A David, a ver qué pasa con los fabricantes.
Vale, me parece muy bien.
Vamos a probar a ver si está ahí
mejor.
Y nos conectamos.
Hi David, how are you?
Hi.
Hi. Hello.
Hi Lena, hi Emilio.
Yeah, we're thinking, how can we involve the people of the machinery sector in this INNOSETA project? What do you think?
Well, I think we should use all our INNOSETA communication channels to spread the project and the platform throughout the entire Europe. And also don't forget to involve the agricultural manufacturer organizations.
When it came to disseminating the services of the INNOSETA platform, David Neutens played a fundamental role. As head of the ILVO Spray Application Technology Group, he visited Jan Langenakens, Managing Director of ARMS in Maldegem. ARMS is a company that designs devices that calibrate and test spraying equipment. The goal was to bring the INNOSETA platform to the farmers. And the next step was to contact Reino as the advisor and information facilitator to the primary sector. The outreach work from the European members of the project was essential for its success.
In het INNOSETA-project hebben we een schat aan info verzameld over innovatieve spuittechnieken en goede praktijken. En via ons platform willen we eigenlijk die info ter beschikking stellen voor alle geïnteresseerden in Europa en bij uitbreiding de hele wereld.
Als constructeur en producent van meet- en demotoestellen is INNOSETA voor ons een heel krachtig platform, waardoor we onze producten eigenlijk kunnen wereldwijd bekendmaken. Door INNOSETA zijn wij ondertussen ook met verschillende andere producenten en constructeurs in contact gekomen, waardoor we nieuwe projecten en onderzoek hebben opgezet.
Ik gebruik het platform vooral om aan landbouwers nieuwe spuittechnieken te tonen op een snelle en makkelijke manier. Er is ook een categorie trainingsmateriaal waar de landbouwers zelf kunnen kijken om hun huidige praktijken te verbeteren met het oog op maximale efficiëntie en minimale impact op het milieu.
But one of the biggest challenges for the creators of the INNOSETA platform still remain: to get the main sprayer and atomizer manufacturers in Europe on board and to upload their information to the digital platform. Gradually, the objectives were achieved thanks to companies such as Hardy from Denmark, with a strong commercial presence all over the continent.
The INNOSETA platform helps us to get in contact with the customer. That means farmers, dealers, consultants, to explain more about our products, but also that they understand there should be the same base of regulations all over Europe, which is a challenge often that they do not see in all markets in the same way. And that's where I hope INNOSETA will help us, that all farmers look on in the same viewpoint on that and get the same information.
When summer 2021 came, the 15 members that fostered the INNOSETA platform realized that its use was growing, and therefore the project was successful. The same farmers that had found so many difficulties in finding reliable information on the internet 4 years earlier were already interacting with the platform, not only to download information, but also to contribute their own knowledge.
Y una cosa además interesante es que tú misma puedes subir cosas a la plataforma, tú o cualquier fabricante. Puedes subir cosas, puedes alimentar la plataforma.
A ver, la formación siempre es importante, ¿vale? A cualquier nivel, desde el básico agricultor hasta el más técnico, porque hoy en día pues, todo va muy deprisa, toda la información va muy deprisa, entonces cuanto más actualizado estés en cuanto a formación, ya sea de protección de cultivos, de maquinaria, de boquillas, de productos, pues todo eso pues al final ayuda mucho a llevar una gestión sostenible y rentable de tu explotación agrícola.
The exact same sensation was felt in Sweden in the summer of 2021. John Grasbo had got to know the INNOSETA platform thanks to Eskil Nielsen, the advisor for Visabi, one of the members of the INNOSETA project. The transfer of knowledge was on its way.
Och då kommer vi till den nyaste sprutan. Den kommer ju upp direkt. Och sen har vi de här smarta plattformarna. Vad är det för en du har i traktorn? Du har något liknande den redan väl?
Ja, men det skulle jag... I och med det inte är en, vad ska man säga, märkes, alltså fokuserat på ett märke, utan det är vad som finns från alla olika märken och projekt och sånt. Så det är definitivt en bra plattform.
Throughout this time, the platform also reached the territorial administration. As a civil servant for Lahore in Sardinia, Salvatore had also realized the necessity of such a tool as INNOSETA, and 3 years later, it had become a reality, and he was already using it. He knew that Europe had been the key that opened the doors to knowledge.
L'esperienza di collaborazione in questo progetto ha dato l'opportunità di condividere interessi comuni da un punto di vista culturale fra i partner, contribuendo ad accrescere la competitività dell'agricoltura europea, senza ovviamente trascurare il suo contributo nella gestione sostenibile delle produzioni agricole nel rispetto delle risorse naturali.
Sustainability and more scientific and treatment precise agriculture are two of the main goals established by the European Union for the coming years. It is well known that this is the only formula to produce healthy and safe food for human consumption. Through the INNOSETA project, financed with Horizon 2020 program funds, information has been structured so that it can be transferred with the aim of moving towards a common and cohesive primary sector. We will move forward only if we do it with the values that define us.
INNOSETA was designed and has been developed totally aligned with the legal framework in Europe concerning the use of pesticides. The objectives and results are totally in line with the Green Deal, with the Farm to Fork strategy, and also with the Sustainable Use Directive. As INNOSETA project coordinator, I must tell you that Europe is the way. Collaboration among all the stakeholders universities, research, manufacturers and advisors, authorities and farmers. All together we are able to follow the rules and to improve the situation for a better and more sustainable agriculture in Europe.
Definitely a very complete overview of INNOSETA and some of the achievements, but also some of the further steps that are going to be taken, particularly in the context of what we were talking about earlier on, i.e. the farm to fork strategy and the broader context of the Green Deal. I see Ms. Aguilera has joined us. I will invite her to come to the main table, and I will also invite Gisela and Klaus to come back as well so that we can soon start our debate. But before that, I will invite Ms. Aguilera to give us the introduction that unfortunately she couldn't give us online, but we're very happy to have you in person with us. It's much nicer actually than having you on a screen, and hopefully we'll have no technical glitch from our end. Maybe, Ms. Aguilera, you would like to be here at the lectern to start.
My intervention, 5 minutes,
Yeah.
5 minutes, 5 minutos y después el panel. Sí.
So, welcome, Ms. Aguilera.
En Spanish.
Sí, sí.
Buenos días.
Good morning, everybody.
Lamento hablar en mi idioma, que es muy bonito.
I'm sorry to be speaking in my native language,
No puedo,
Spanish. It's a beautiful
no hablo
language.
bien inglés y
I'm not very good speaking English, unfortunately, so. But here it goes.
Bueno, quiero disculpar que esta
First of all,
mañana no pude
I would
estar
like
en la
apologize that I
organización,
wasn't able
en la
to
inauguración
join you
de este
at the
evento.
introduction of these events.
Problemas técnicos me lo han
There's a
impedido,
technical issue,
pero
unfortunately,
ahora estoy encantada de
made it
estar
impossible for me to
con
be here, but I'm
ustedes
delighted to be finally here with you.
con este importante
this event,
proyecto. Felicitación
which is such
a
a
Emilio,
major project. Congratulations to Emilio.
a todos los que han participado
And
en este
to all
desarrollo
those of you
de esta
who
plataforma
have taken part in
privada, pero muy participativa, y estoy convencida de
To all those
que
of you
para los
who have
agricultores va
taken
a ser
part
un
in this project, I'm
elemento
convinced
importante.
that this is a major project also for farmers.
Por tanto, decirles algunas reflexiones
I would like to share a couple of
sobre
thoughts with
la
you.
nueva estrategia Farm to Fork. La pasada semana aprobamos la opinión del Parlamento sobre esta estrategia de la granja a la mesa. También aprobamos hace unos meses la estrategia de biodiversidad. Bueno, yo quiero insistir aquí, como suelo decir mucho a los agricultores, estamos hablando de un documento político, no normativo. No implica una obligación inmediata, sino que son objetivos a cumplir en la próxima década, si se desarrolla la normativa adecuada para ello. Por tanto, bueno, es decir, nosotros hemos apoyado en la opinión, yo he sido ponente de mi grupo político, los socialdemócratas europeos, y bueno, fundamentalmente no hemos querido tocar el porcentaje político, insisto, establecido por la Comisión, de un 50% de reducción de pesticidas, de fertilizantes, de antibióticos, de un 25% de incremento de producción ecológica. No hemos querido políticamente entrar sin más, menos, sin reducir, sin incrementar, sin cuestionar. No nos parecía que era el debate. Creemos que hay que hacer una reducción de uso de pesticidas químicos, porque la sociedad va evolucionando y lo va demandando, pero siempre y cuando, y eso quiero dejarlo bien claro, haya alternativas a la agricultura. Si no, es una gran mentira. Es decir, por tanto, no sé si será el adecuado el 50, el 30 o el 10 o el 70, yo qué sé. Es decir, vamos a ver, tenemos que ir de la mano de la ciencia y de la innovación. Estoy de acuerdo, y mi grupo, en que hay que ir a contribuir la agricultura y la ganadería en la lucha contra el cambio climático, claramente, como otros sectores, el del transporte, es decir, la energía, es decir, los sectores económicos tienen que contribuir toda esa reducción, cada uno en función de lo que pueda llevar a cabo y su compromiso. Por eso no hemos querido entrar en ese debate estricto de los porcentajes. Sí lo hemos ligado mucho a las alternativas. La sanidad animal y la sanidad vegetal son elementos imprescindibles para tener una agricultura europea y una ganadería competitivas. Vemos cómo si hay una amenaza de peste porcina, gripe aviar o cualquier elemento, inmediatamente tiene una incidencia en las exportaciones de la Unión Europea. Es decir, inmediatamente se cierra eso. Por lo tanto, lo mismo sucede en la sanidad vegetal, tenemos la sileya en el olivo y tenemos, bueno, la mancha negra en los cítricos, muchas plagas que se van introduciendo y que necesitamos instrumentos. Si la ciencia nos permite instrumentos no químicos, mejor, como demanda social. Por lo tanto, ese ha sido nuestro debate, que ha tenido una leve incidencia en la reforma de la PAC. Digo leve porque la PAC empezamos 3 años antes a debatir y la estrategia llegó al final. La Comisión está empeñada en que, lógicamente, los planes estratégicos estén en línea con los objetivos con los objetivos del Green Deal. Pero los reglamentos de la PAC, en esa subsidiariedad, han dejado a los Estados que decidan el camino y los tiempos a seguir. Por lo tanto, bueno, es decir, la PAC está en parte limitada, pero en una pequeña parte porque no han sido los tiempos de progresión los mismos. Y para ir finalizando en esta intervención, decirle, pero únicamente, es verdad que la PAC ha tenido una incidencia al final del Green Deal y de la estrategia, pero tengo que decir también que sobre la producción agrícola es el único instrumento de política agrícola que tiene la Comisión y que tienen los Estados. En el resto de la cadena alimentaria, para incidir en los consumidores, no hay otros instrumentos. Es decir, donde hay mayor fuerza para poder condicionar los cambios es en la producción. No sucede en otros eslabones de la cadena alimentaria que se ven en la estrategia. La estrategia es una estrategia alimentaria, transversal, que mira la producción, mira la salud, el medio ambiente, todos los aspectos. Pero donde puede haber una mayor intervención directa es en la parte productiva, debido a tener una política agrícola común, es decir, que está basada en unos reglamentos que estamos a punto de aprobar, aunque parezca que hace mucho, todavía no lo hemos aprobado en el Parlamento, los vamos a aprobar el próximo 23 de noviembre, los 3 reglamentos de la PAC y el resto de la cadena alimentaria. Esa incidencia de hacia dónde quiere ir la estrategia no tendrá instrumentos tan eficaces como la PAC para el resto de eslabones de la cadena alimentaria. En mi opinión, ahora tenemos un nuevo instrumento, ya han llegado otros reglamentos, otras propuestas ya legislativas con Fit for 55. Ya estamos en debate, en algunos debates, que ya va a tener alguna parte que ver también con la parte de la agricultura en cuanto al uso de los suelos. Su incidencia ya sí con proyectos normativos. Por lo tanto, bueno, tenemos un camino por delante, que se desarrollarán proyectos normativos. No hay que obcecarse tanto en los porcentajes. Yo suelo recordar a los agricultores preocupados, y con razón, que teníamos que haber llegado a la convergencia en los pagos de la PAC en 2020. Ni hemos llegado, no hemos dado un próximo plazo en 2027 y dudo yo que esté cerrada la convergencia en Europa al 100% los pagos de la PAC en 2027. Y lo digo en 2021. Es decir, es muy difícil que determinados países con un 40 o 50% de convergencia lleguen al 100% en 2027. Quiero decir con esto, vamos a ver los proyectos normativos, cómo se desarrollan y claramente decir, la innovación, la ciencia y la investigación es la clave de la lucha contra el cambio climático en la agricultura y la ganadería. Por eso, felicidades por este proyecto, por esta plataforma, que a mí lo que me parece de mayor interés, no es que haya ya una plataforma muy interesante con datos, es decir, pero que puedan interactuar todas las partes, es decir, que se puedan introducir por diversos, los agricultores, los científicos puedan interactuar con esa plataforma y a su vez recoger esa información. Creo que es muy interesante. Felicidades por estos 3 años de trabajo y a vuestra disposición ahora en el debate. Gracias.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much, Ms. Aguilera. And please take a seat. And then I would like to invite Gisela and Klaus to get back also to the debate table. So we can now start our discussion and we can maybe dig a little deeper into some of the points that have been made so far. My first question is to all three of you. Now, we all acknowledge that, of course, innovation is absolutely essential in order to meet the principles that have been set by the Green Deal and by Farm to Fork. But in order to cope with these goals, there are many tools, and many more tools are going to come to the market. And they need to be affordable, they need to be safe, they need to be effective. So which tools, and I'm going just to hang on a second, just because I want to make sure that Ms. Aguilera got the question. So we're looking at the tools that are going to come to the market, and we want to make sure that they allow farmers to meet the sustainability goals of Farm to Fork and the Green Deal. But because there are going to be so many tools, the tools that farmers are going to need to be affordable, they need to be safe, they need to be effective. So my first question is about those tools, and which tools do you think are most likely to be implemented by 2030, which is tomorrow. So maybe Ms. Aguilera, for you first.
Sí, gracias. Bueno, hay una cosa que... perdón, el micrófono.
Here.
Sorry. ¿Sí?
Should be on.
Apagado, ¿no?
Yeah.
Sí. Bueno, efectivamente, la clave de que se pueda utilizar es que sean herramientas asequibles. Asequibles de forma, económicamente asequibles, pero sobre todo también que tengan efectividad agronómica. porque, es decir, las alternativas, es decir, los productos, es decir, que realmente consigamos algo que pueda acometer el problema de la sanidad vegetal en caso de las plantas o no. Por lo tanto, ¿cuáles van a ser estas herramientas? Bueno, yo creo que ya hay algunas herramientas muy interesantes ahora mismo y hay un gran desarrollo que para mí es muy positivo con las New Breeding Techniques, por ejemplo. A algunos diputados, compañeros míos, les da un poquito de alergia cuando hablamos de esto, pero yo creo que es las técnicas de edición genómica creo que pueden ser una alternativa siempre y cuando consigamos que la Comisión lleve a cabo una regulación. Ahora mismo no tenemos esa regulación y tenemos una sentencia que genera dudas técnicas con esa sentencia porque los asimila a los organismos modificados genéticamente. Y ahí en Europa, bueno, si eres OGM, claro, eres absolutamente maldito. Por lo tanto, necesitamos una normativa. Ya ha anunciado la Comisión que va a desarrollar una normativa de aplicación de esas nuevas técnicas de edición genómica. Por ejemplo, puede ser una alternativa en la que yo creo tiene sus discrepancias. Yo conozco otros grupos políticos y compañeros de mi grupo político que no lo ven, pero yo creo que eso puede ser una alternativa para el 2030 de uso. Y sin duda tengo una gran creencia en todo lo que salga de la innovación y del trabajo de la ciencia. Es clave. Si tenemos en cuenta la ciencia y apoyamos todos los trabajos relacionados, vamos a tener alternativas interesantes. Tienen que ser agronómicamente posibles, tener en cuenta la variedad de cultivos en los diferentes países, que no son todos iguales. Aquí a veces, cuando mis colegas hablan, los suecos o los daneses, digo, yo estoy al sur, yo soy de Andalucía, con una climatología complicada, de mucho calor. Entonces, hay que asegurar esas alternativas a lo grande que es Europa y a los distintos los distintos climas y a la distinta agricultura, al modelo tan diferente que tenemos, todo enriquecedor, pero hay que adecuar mucho a esa climatología, como también, bueno, en el caso de la ganadería y en el caso, hablamos menos del uso de antibióticos, que ya se evita más el uso en colectividades, pero tener alternativas para incluso ganaderías que no son tan grandes como los pequeños rumiantes, que a veces se encuentran sin alternativas. Yo creo en la técnica de edición genómica y creo sobre todo en la ciencia que nos desarrolle y nos ponga delante alternativas viables y fiables. Ya solo falta que creamos en la ciencia, creamos en la innovación y apostemos por ella, y así tendremos un futuro mejor en Europa. Y no otras cosas no nos nublen la visión.
Thank you. Now, before I give the opportunity to Klaus and Gisela to answer, I would like to remind all of you who are following us online that you can, of course, send your questions. You can send them through the chat function of the platform. So please go ahead. We will have an exchange with our speakers at the end of our panel. And, of course, we can take questions from the room. So who would like to go first to answer this particular question? Gisela? Yes?
So I think tools, there are going to be many. We are investing a lot in research and innovation. One point that I think it's important is to test and to validate and to deploy these technologies and innovation in the field, in the farms, to demonstrate that these innovations are useful and it will help farmers in their activities. So we launched last year the Green Deal Call, that it was a specific innovation projects that they need to test and deploy these innovations and test in different agriculture environments. So trying to cover sometimes it's difficult to cover all the crops and the countries, but they have demonstrations in several countries for several different crops. So I think this is a way to implement these new technologies that research are developing. And we also have a project that has started last year that is a farm demonstration. So this is an useful application of so then farmers can be in contact with the innovations and deploy them in their own fields and influence their neighbor farmers to also join to implement this tool. So this is, I cannot say which kind of tool of the innovations are going to be in the future, but this is the way to really deploy these things in the fields.
Yeah, that's indeed a bit of a crystal ball question, but we know the main trends. So Klaus.
No, well, maybe I think once the technologies are there, or new technologies and equipment are there, and the farmers know about them and they are convinced, the big question is also the economic one. I mean, does it make sense for the farmer to actually buy the equipment? The beautiful things we saw in Emilio's video. And here I think the member states have possibilities clearly under the new CAP to help farmers in such investments, and it's probably pillar 2. I mean, I'm not an expert, but my colleague from Agri knows more. But then there can also be new models. I mean, do farmers always have to own, for example, the equipment? In the video that we saw, they all seem to have been the owners of the beautiful machinery they had. But we had, in one of the events that we organized in our unit, contact with service providers, so companies that actually offer the spraying or the treatment or whatever technology is being used to the farmers, so that they don't have to buy the equipment, which makes it also more affordable and more accessible. Also, a few years ago, I was at an event which, funnily enough, never had a real follow-up, where new business models were proposed from and to pesticides manufacturers, so that they don't sell 20 liters or 100 liters of a product X to a farmer, but they sell a service to treat so and so many hectares during a growing season. So new business models that avoid that farmers have to invest huge amounts of money into new application technologies. And all of that, I think, can contribute to making such new technologies more successful.
Yes, a new approach, basically, not just new tools. Yeah. Ms. Aguilera, how can, from your point of view, how can institutions help farmers to access the sort of safe and really cutting-edge technologies that are going to help them remain competitive and at the same time improve their sustainability approach?
Sí, bueno, yo creo que... Sí, creo que hay instrumentos para ello, es decir, que ahí es donde yo decía es que en la producción está la política agraria común. Es decir, tenemos dentro fundamentalmente del segundo pilar de la PAC, dentro de las políticas de desarrollo rural, en donde se pueden apoyar la introducción de todo este tipo, quizás de nueva maquinaria, de nuevos instrumentos. Luego hay un elemento que a nosotros nos parece irrelevante, que es el apoyo dentro de ese segundo pilar de la política agrícola del asesoramiento a las explotaciones. Esto es fundamental porque los agricultores necesitan apoyo, no son técnicos, son profesionales que van aprendiendo, pero necesitan, con nuevas técnicas, nuevos productos, necesitan asesoramiento. Nosotros hemos reforzado mucho, yo creo, y espero que en los planes estratégicos nacionales el servicio de asesoramiento a las explotaciones sea un elemento fundamental. Yo cuando empezaba a trabajar en la agricultura, hace ya algunos años, No voy a decir cuán tanto, porque entonces voy a parecer muy mayor. Pero cuando empezaba en Andalucía, en mi región, había un servicio de explotaciones público, llamado el Servicio de Extensión Agraria. Ese servicio de extensión apoyaba muchísimo a los agricultores y ganaderos el asesoramiento de nuevos productos, qué hacer, porque pensamos que un agricultor, ahora ya van con más formación, pero no es fácil. Bueno, esos servicios públicos están desapareciendo prácticamente, no en todas las regiones, pero sí bastante, y entonces ahora lo que hay que incrementar con financiación es el servicio de asesoramiento de explotaciones que en los grupos cooperativos o grupos de agricultores para que tengan esa formación profesional adecuada y luego, si necesitan instrumentos de apoyo, pues ahí está el segundo pilar, las políticas de desarrollo rural, en donde pueden acceder a esas inversiones que requieren. Es decir, evidentemente, salvo grandes agricultores, a lo mejor la maquinaria es de gran inversión, lo decía Klaus, pero a lo mejor lo que hay que fomentar el agrupamiento de esos servicios para que el coste de los agricultores sea más adecuado. Yo creo que hay instrumentos, tienen que ponerlos los estados con los planes estratégicos de la PAC al servicio y luego firmemente apoyar mucho el servicio de asesoramiento a las explotaciones para que puedan apoyar técnicamente todo esto a los agricultores. Yo creo que ellos son fundamentales y luego también se ha aprovechado mucho en este marco actual, que la persona de la DG Agri puede a lo mejor abundar más, en los temas de innovación con los grupos mixtos de científicos y agricultores, que ha funcionado bastante bien, porque hemos acercado con esa fórmula en la política agrícola común que un agricultor demande directamente a un científico, a un profesor, hacia dónde cree él, es decir, cuáles son sus aspiraciones de futuro. Yo creo que hay políticas de apoyo, no sé si serán suficientes, pero desde luego, porque recuerdo que el segundo pilar es cofinanciado por los estados y por las regiones. Bueno, en la medida que pongan dinero los estados y las comunidades autónomas, en el caso de mi país, pues seguramente habrá suficientes recursos para ello.
Thank you. Gisela, we've talked indeed about the tools and we've talked about the role of the institutions, but still looking at the role of the institutions within the framework of Farm to Fork. Do you think, or how do you think the institutions can help farmers best invest in the future applications of innovative technologies? Their investments are going to be needed. We've touched upon that and already upon that aspect. So how can institutions, or can they help farmers invest and to the best of their abilities?
Well, as I said in my previous intervention, I think that the best way is to show that these innovations really works and they will provide reasonable results, so that they are economically feasible also. So from DG Agri in our innovation projects, we aim to show these results to the farmers, so then that the investments are justified not only because it's a new thing to use, but also that it will provide benefits to the farmers as well. So I think this is a really a good way to promote the investments in farmers' technology.
So more information, really.
And real data that these solutions provide some benefits, no? Environmental, but not only environmental, but also that adjust the farm equation, no? That is, with these innovations, you can also have profit, no?
Right, thank you. And Klaus, If we look at the assessment of future technologies that will be used in the fields in order to protect crops and to apply targeted spraying, do you think EFSA will continue to play that assessment role, or should another agency do it? How do you see things evolving?
Let me first join Ms. Aguilera in supporting her call on better availability of advice and extension services, however you want to call them, to the farmers. I mean, the local ones that are closer to the farmers are much better placed in this respect than we would be here as a European institution. So I can only support you very much in that. And not only for pesticides application, but also for what will hopefully develop in the future, better forecasting, better pest forecasting, and better detection whether there is pest infestation to a degree that treatment is necessary, because every farmer is happy to avoid spending money on treatments if it's not necessary. So it's broader than only the actual pesticides application. But coming to your question now, we are, EFSA is our advisor, our scientific advisor when it comes to the risk assessment for active substances or plant protection products. And that includes mitigation measures and risk reduction technologies. So no, we have no plans at the moment to entrust this task to another agency. Besides, I couldn't think of one. Or do you have one to suggest?
I certainly don't. Some people in the room might. Any question from the room? Yes? Please, we'll pass on the mic.
I have a question and a consideration.
No, it's not on. There we are.
Can you hear me now? Yes. I have a question and a consideration for Klaus. You mentioned about, and I agree, the possibility to make some work at field level, like a pesticide application, going to some agency that we call contractors that can do that. This is for sure true, but we have to consider that, again, we have to distinguish between situations. I mean, for field crops, where you mainly have to control weeds, you have not a so strict time for apply pesticide. If you look at 3D crops, where you have to control disease, like fungi or insect, you have maybe just 1 day time for applying the pesticide to be sure to have effective in control the disease. So in this case, it's really difficult to move to contractors. So that is the reason for which, if I look at vineyards or vineyard, also very small farm with less than 1 hectare, need to buy sprayers because of this needed to be very, in a short time, able to apply the pesticide.
Yeah, that is certainly true, and I don't want to give the impression that this is a one-size-fits-all solution for everybody. But harvesting is the same, and often there is a very limited time window, and still it works with shared equipment on many examples. Not for everything. I agree with you on that. And for the vineyards, I mean, I grew up on a small farm, and we had also 700 square meters or something of vineyards. Very often you need to treat, not just once in a very limited time window, but very often. And we did it with very, very basic equipment, believe me, at the time.
I think we have a question from the gentleman there, and then we have a question from Emilio.
Hello. Yeah. So, question on Klaus on regarding your. My name is Peter Ruben from SEMA. Regarding, in respect of your presentation about the founding, about the Horizon projects, and about the call of that we or you would like to have for the risk assessment of the pesticides, you need the quantitative data about the technologies, about the mitigation measures, let's say. We identify we have as an industry a challenge, or maybe as not only the industry, but let's say all the stakeholders which are involved in this topic. We have a challenge to get this data for new technologies. It's either about the drift data or about the pesticides reduction data, what the new technologies can really bring in a practice. So for this, we will need, there are needed long-term research on the field, practice. That's one point. So, and these are very extensive. We don't have capacities. Even the large manufacturers don't have capacities to fund this. The question is, will there a possibility within the Horizon project to have one, let's say, specific call for this kind of research? Another example, I forgot about orchard sprayers, because I think those are at this moment very critical. When you conduct field studies on the new orchard sprayers, it takes 1-2 years to get that certified sprayer. So, and this is just because of lack of capacities of the test institutes. So these are the issues we would like to address you. Sorry for taking this. It's a little bit side of this main today questions, but I think I would like to use this opportunity to address it. Thank you.
So that's more for you, Gisela, is it?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. I agree that we need this long-term research project to test innovations in general, and we had just last year a call specifically to do that. It was very competitive. We received 70 proposals to do this, and the project just started. So with this idea of getting the real numbers of what is the reduction that is possible with this innovation, it cannot, it will cover specific crops and countries, but we just started the project that is doing that. And then I take note of this comment because we just start the programming, the new work program for 23-24, so it can be that we develop a specific call or topic for this demand. But it was already in Horizon 2020, we just have in the Green Deal call a similar need, and now we are, we expect to have the result from the project, no?
Thank you. We have a question from Emilio and then a question from Pedro, which is going to be our last question. Can I just ask both of you to please keep your questions short?
Very short, muy cortas. Bueno, gracias de nuevo por estar aquí. Tecnología tenemos, ciencia conocemos, pero a mí me gustaría saber, desde vuestros puestos de responsabilidad en la Comisión y en el Parlamento, si creéis que lo que estamos haciendo entre todos es realmente, digamos, realista. El agricultor que recibe la información, tengo que reducir al 50% el uso de fitosanitarios. Habrá que darle alguna cosa, ¿no? Lo decía Clara, herramientas alternativas. ¿Cómo creéis que esto llega de verdad? Y ligado con eso, en uno de los recientes Regional Workshops del proyecto INNOSETA, en Almería precisamente, después de enseñarle a unos cuantos agricultores y advisors todo lo que habíamos hecho, un señor levanta la mano y dijo: yo estoy encantado en usar toda esta nueva tecnología, pero vengo del mercado de vender los tomates y los he vendido a 80 céntimos el kilo. Entonces, ¿cómo lo hago?
Ms. Aguilera, yes, please.
Sí, bueno, me encanta esta pregunta. Me oigo con eco, no sé. Me ha ilusionado la pregunta y me he olvidado quitarme los cascos. Bueno, este es el problema real. Por eso, insistimos, yo hablo en plural, porque hay muchos diputados y otros muchos que están en otra cosa, cuidado. Digo, es decir, yo como ponente de Far2For y dentro de mi grupo hago ver que, lógicamente, la lucha contra el cambio climático es una prioridad. Es decir, no lo discute eso nadie discute eso. Pero tenemos que hacer lo posible, si vamos a hacer actuaciones en la producción agrícola europea, tenemos que hacer de la mano del sector y contando con el sector agrícola. Y sobre todo porque nuestra aspiración es seguir manteniendo un sector agrícola potente, que yo sepa eso se sigue manteniendo. Queremos tener una soberanía alimentaria en la Unión Europea y queremos sobre todo tener unos territorios rurales en donde también la agricultura sea un elemento de renta importante. Yo creo que a eso no hemos renunciado. Y puesto que no hemos renunciado, necesitamos que la competitividad unida a la sostenibilidad sean elementos sustanciales. Yo les puedo decir a ustedes que cuando en la discusión en el Parlamento, de la discusión sobre cualquier elemento siempre había que añadir sostenibilidad y cuando hablabas de competitividad como que importaba menos. Y hay una cosa que dicen los agricultores, y como está Pedro también él lo suele decir, que si no hay ingresos y no hay rentabilidad, no hay tampoco sostenibilidad ni nada, no habrá ni agricultura. Por lo tanto, necesitamos trabajar en esa sostenibilidad. Hay que ir de la mano de los agricultores y de los sectores, asesorándoles y apoyándoles y con efectos viables, porque, como bien dice, ha hecho el caso de Almería, me da igual, cualquier parte, o la naranja o cualquier producto, a precios por debajo de coste, es muy difícil mantener una explotación. Los sectores ganaderos pasa igual. El apoyo de la PAC en la renta agraria de mi país, y yo diría en la media europea, y si no es así, me corrija la representante de la DG Agri, supone el 30%. La subvención de la PAC en la renta agraria europea. O sea, que es necesario ese 30% para obtener una renta agraria total. Por eso se sigue justificando la PAC también como apoyo a renta, no solo como sostenibilidad medioambiental o como incorporación de bienes públicos, sino de apoyo a renta. Por tanto, esto será posible, el Pacto Verde Europeo y el compromiso de la agricultura será posible si hay apoyos públicos, si hay alternativas al momento que puedan usar los agricultores a precios asequibles, y esta transformación, yo diría que estamos hablando de una transformación importante, es decir, en el modelo agrícola la acompañamos con apoyo público, si no, no será posible. Si no, habrá agricultores que abandonarán las tierras y al final lo que a mí no me gustaría que sucediera es que las importaciones se vieran beneficiadas, porque somos muy exigentes para el agricultor de Almería o para el agricultor de belga, pero para el agricultor de Brasil ya no somos tanto, ni para el de Marruecos ni para el de Sudáfrica. Y decimos, es que hay que ayudar a ese país. No es verdad. Estamos ayudando a los importadores, en muchos casos europeos, que no a los agricultores. Por tanto, no nos mintamos a nosotros mismos y hagamos posible que la agricultura europea tenga futuro. Para ello, apoyo público y alternativas viables y asequibles. No hay otro camino. Lo demás, bueno, pueden ser un meeting que les guste mucho a la Comisión, especialmente al vicepresidente Timmermans y a otros, porque el comisario de Agricultura habla muy poco, con respeto, pero muy poco habla de estos temas, lamentablemente para la Comisión de Agricultura del Parlamento. Pero bueno, esperemos que la agricultura, bueno, con apoyos públicos suficientes y con alternativas y el apoyo de la ciencia, tenga al final, sea asequible a esto. Porque somos muy sensibles en los cambios en los coches y estamos dispuestos a ayudar a las grandes empresas automovilísticas europeas, a las grandes empresas energéticas europeas. Apoyemos también a los pequeños agricultores, medianos o grandes, europeos, a poder subsistir. Si somos sensibles para una gran industria de otro sector, espero que también lo seamos para la agricultura y la consideremos en el valor que tiene.
Thank you, Ms. Aguilera. So, final question from Pedro over there. Yes.
Muchísimas gracias. Soy Pedro Gallardo, agricultor de España también, pero vengo hoy representando a Copa Colleca. Bueno, a mí un par de reflexiones muy rápidas, porque creo que tras la última intervención de Clara prácticamente se ha dicho todo y apoyamos, Clara, totalmente lo que te ha referido. En primer lugar, las nuevas técnicas de edición genética, que entendemos que serán la herramienta, o prácticamente la única herramienta que vamos a tener los agricultores para mitigar el cambio climático. No se trata ya de unas estrategias, si del campo a la mesa, si la biodiversidad, sino se trata de un cambio climático que tenemos. Yo vengo de una tierra, igual que Clara, ayer precisamente pasé por Granada, viniendo de Almería, 30 litros por metro cuadrado desde el 9 de marzo. Eso es lo que llevamos. En 6 meses, 30 litros. Cuando teníamos que tener una precipitación media de unos 400, 500, 600 litros año. Por tanto, esas herramientas que vamos a necesitar, esa adaptación de esa futura semilla, es imprescindible si realmente queremos tener producción en Europa, si no queremos traerla de fuera, como decía Clara, con unos estándares que son totalmente distintos a los que se nos exigen a nosotros. Y en esa diversidad productiva, que se refería Clara anteriormente, y que también te felicitamos, Clara, por esa intervención, tenemos que tener en cuenta pues, que precisamente parte de la adaptación de los agricultores al cambio climático es precisamente eso, decirle a la Comisión. En España, igual que en otras zonas de Italia, de Portugal, de Grecia, incluso de Francia, tenemos una agricultura continental, tenemos una agricultura mediterránea y ya tenemos una agricultura subtropical. Aguacate, caqui, pitaya, una cuestión que me imagino que muchas personas no sabrán que se está produciendo pitaya, un producto que yo estaba en Ecuador, está en otras zonas del mundo, pero se está produciendo ya en estas zonas del sur. Por tanto, para tener herramientas para defendernos ante ese cambio climático, necesitaremos semillas adaptadas a ese cambio climático para poder competir. Además, lo decimos muy claramente, estas nuevas técnicas de edición genética no son detectables en fronteras. Por tanto, nos va a entrar aquí producción de otros mundos con estas técnicas que ya tanto Brasil, Argentina, Estados Unidos, Canadá, Japón, China ha dicho que sí, y Europa de momento mira al cielo, como miramos los agricultores para ver cuándo llueve. Y ya por último, para terminar, decirle a la Comisión, la agricultura no es una fábrica de tornillos o no es una fábrica de coches. Nosotros los agricultores hay días que queremos hacer un tratamiento, una pulverización o cualquier otra, una fertilización, pero hay días que se puede y hay días que no se puede por la climatología. Por tanto, yo creo que sería una herramienta especial tener pues eso, alternativas y sobre todo, en este caso, INNOSETA, este proyecto precisamente lo que recoge son parte de estas iniciativas. Se trata, en definitiva, de tener una caja de herramientas cuanto más amplia posible. Muchas gracias, Clara, por tu intervención.
Thank you. Some final comments on these comments? No?
Yo
Good.
sí puedo hablar. Bueno, ellos son personal técnico de la comisión y entiendo que tienen sus reservas. Ahora le doy la palabra a Klaus, que lo veo animado. Yo únicamente decir, los políticos nos dan oportunidad de hablar y nunca la desechamos, o sea que es mala cosa. Yo solo quiero decir, y bueno, sé el trabajo... Quiero decir, el trabajo de Pedro en los temas que hace el COPA y la innovación. Pedro estuvo ayer en Almería, después se fue a Sevilla, después se fue a Madrid y se ha venido a Bruselas. Todo 36 horas, ¿no? Es un agricultor que dejó el tractor antes de ayer. O sea, Muchas gracias, Pedro, por el esfuerzo tan grande que hace en nombre de los agricultores por estar aquí, ¿no? Es decir, lo conozco porque es de mi región, a Pedro Gallardo, y hace una gran labor en su organización. Solo quiero decir lo siguiente, lo que ha dicho, no reiterar lo mismo, pero comentar aquí. Ahora estamos ante uno de los grandes debates que hemos tenido en los últimos años sobre una autorización de nuevo al glifosato. Digo, esto se ha convertido en el gran elemento de debate contra herbicidas, pesticidas, empresas desde el sector. Bueno, eso, dice Klaus se ríe porque yo de verdad estoy bastante aburrida ya con defendiendo que yo me creo lo que diga la EFSA, porque yo creo a nuestra agencia europea, pero tengo que decir que en el Parlamento pues a veces topamos con esta situación. No podemos, de cara al futuro, y es donde quiero ir, ahora estamos con la autorización del glifosato, con 4 estados haciendo los informes previos, 4, hecho inaudito, para renovar o no la autorización que cumple el próximo año, y después la ESA emitirá su informe y el que diga la EFSA y la ECA, pues evidentemente debiera ser el Parlamento decir, bueno, si las agencias de la seguridad alimentaria están diciendo que es posible la autorización, pues hágase. No. Por sistema, cada vez más hay una oposición sistemática a esto. Con esto quiero decir que hay cosas que debemos cambiar, si no será inviable el Pacto Verde. Es decir, hay que transmitir la seguridad que nos dan nuestras agencias de seguridad. Hay que olvidar los discursos de que aquí lo seguro es la agricultura ecológica. No, la agricultura ecológica es un modelo agrícola interesante, que no usa pesticidas químicos, pero sí otros, y que es interesante que aumente, pero la agricultura convencional tiene todos los elementos de garantía de seguridad alimentaria que a veces se confunde a la sociedad. Entonces, esto sí que me gustaría que dejara claro y tenemos que trabajar en esta línea. Va a ser muy significativo, por eso he querido dejarlo en este debate y termino el debate que vamos a tener y todos los pasos con referencia al glifosato. Digo por el papel, para mí, vital que tiene que jugar la EFSA siempre. Yo no puedo cuestionar un informe científico. Es decir, puedo pedir que sea más transparente, que sea no sé qué cosa, pero no puedo cuestionar el informe científico de una agencia europea, porque si no, había que replantearse la Unión Europea en general. Este debate va a marcar mucho los futuros debates. Así que a partir de los próximos semestres veremos cómo va todo ello. Lo digo porque va a marcar todo esto que estamos hablando de forma colateral, pero lo va a marcar. Así que era lo que quería comentarles a ustedes de cara al futuro debate que vamos a tener con pesticidas, con uso de fertilizantes y con elementos que tiene que significar la ciencia. A veces el argumento del principio de precaución utilizado sistemáticamente es utilizado en contra del avance científico. Fíjense lo que les digo. Esa es mi sensación y, por supuesto, mi opinión personal. Nada más. Gracias a ustedes.
Thank you. I think, Klaus, you want to have the final word on this one.
Not necessarily the final word, and even though
it will have to be, though.
And even though the grey bureaucrats that we are usually described as do not always use every occasion to talk, but on this one I want to. First, to agree with Ms. Aguilar, absolutely, that the farmers that make the extra investment, that make the extra efforts to increase sustainability need to be rewarded. And that is now the task for the member states in the national strategic plans to make sure that this is becoming a reality in the future. And on glyphosate and pesticides, there, Ms. Aguilar, I hear what you say, but unfortunately your group usually votes against us when we present proposals that are in line with EFSA opinions. Yeah. So your group is unfortunately always on the other side, votes against when we extend approvals, when we renew approvals, etc., etc. So I call on you to convince your fellow parliamentarians to support us when we stay truthful to EFSA opinions. And the last remark on the new genomic techniques. Here, the Commission has started work with a very open mind to examine the situation and to develop an appropriate legal framework for the new genomic techniques. But that will only succeed if in the end there is societal acceptance. And acceptance in the parliament, acceptance by the member states. So this is also a role for, I think, for you as farmers to explain to the public, to explain to NGOs, what are the potential benefits that the new genomic techniques bring? And the examples you mentioned are certainly very good to adapt to climate change, to cope with drought, to cope with new pests, whatever. That's really good. But let's not forget that glyphosate and the opposition to glyphosate comes to a large part from its association with GMO technology. And we have to, and you all have to collectively avoid a repetition of the same mistakes that were done at the time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, a very, very short comment because we're already quite late for our coffee break.
Una pequeña cosa, pido disculpas. Tiene razón Klaus, mi grupo político ocasiona muchos problemas, pero en las familias hay de todo. Yo no elijo con quién se casó mi hermano. Es mi cuñada y la tengo que aguantar en las comidas de Navidad. O sea, eso me pasa con mi grupo político. Es decir, tengo confrontaciones con ellos, pero bueno, haremos lo que podamos. Gracias.
Thank you very much. Thank you, all three of you. Thank you for a very frank and open debate, and that's always refreshing. So thank you. We now take a 15 minutes coffee break, so we'll go slightly over time, and we reconvene at 35, so 11:35. That is for those of you who are following us online.
Thank you.
Look very pleased. Thank you very much.
people watching us online. Right, so we're going to resume our session with the second part. So welcome back. I hope you're refreshed and you had time for a coffee, including at home, and you also had time to stretch your legs for a few minutes. I would like now to give the floor to Pedro Gallardo, who's the Vice President of Copa-Cogeca, and Pedro will tell us about the importance of projects like INNOSETA for the farming world on a daily basis. So Pedro, welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm going to make my intervention in Spanish. Buenos días a...
Good morning, everybody, first of all.
Nothing. ¿Pruebo el micro, Paula? ¿Pruebo con el micro? Probando con micrófono. 1, 2, 3. Probando con micro. Nothing. One, two, three. Checking. No. Sí, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, probando, 1, 2, 3. Sí. Probando, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, probando.
I am not sure whether that is meant to send a signal that purely online sessions have become easier than in-person sessions.
Okay, I can try to make it in English. Not bad, not so good, my English, so sorry.
Thank you very much for trying,
You're
Pedro.
welcome.
That's very kind.
Sorry, in English I need to read, because in Spanish I prepare in Spanish, but in English I would read my speech. Okay. Okay. Morning, 1, 2, 3, checking. Not working in English also? Okay. English or Spanish? Spanish. Okay. Sorry. Sorry once again. Okay. Buenos días, señoras y señores. Muy buenos.
To the INNOSETA brokerage event, an invitation sent by Emilio Gil. Emilio, I would like to thank you and also our hosts, Ms. Clara Aguilera and Mr. Norbert Linz. Emilio, I would also like to congratulate you as well, because we can see that it's a very interesting project and we farmers can learn a lot from it. So once again, congratulations. And for me, it's an absolute pleasure to be here today to represent farmers at this very special occasion. I understand that we're going to, we're here to celebrate a successful project, and we can see that INNOSETA can be a useful tool to provide advisory services for innovation and training for spraying equipment that we farmers use. So previously, I introduced myself. I'm Pedro Gallardo. I'm an Andalusian farmer from the south of Spain. I have 250 hectares of crops, mainly durum wheat, cereals, soft wheat, sunflower, and some protein crops to make sure that I comply with the greening requirements. I have a farm in the south, like I said. My children are also helping me run the farm and with daily activities, and so going into more specific things. When we talk about the specific context of the European Union in terms of farming, we see a lot of changes and a lot of challenges ahead, challenges that are major in the near future. And so European growing and livestock farming will play a major role. And this, we have to say, farmers, operators, agricultural companies work day in, day out, as Clara well said, to make sure our produce reaches the market, to make sure that we are able to be competitive and we can meet the highest standards, the most stringent standards required by European consumers, but to make sure the food is also affordable. It's important to make sure that our produce are affordable and high quality when reaching the market, both food and non-food produce, because we forget that there is a major part of farming that, for example, refers to non-food products. And so we need to take into account forestry, which is also something that is of concern. Also, when we zoom in a little bit and to give you a better context of the current situation, I would start by talking about the European Green Deal and the Farm to Fork strategy and the biodiversity strategy, which we have made reference to this morning. This Green Deal, European Green Deal approach has a series of interlinked axes with the agricultural sector. First of all, it gives us an opportunity, but also poses a challenge, one that raises various concerns and question marks, which, as we believe, these could affect our sector. Some of the aspects that are considered under the Green Deal, at least from our perspective, must be carefully assessed and analysed to ensure that farmers are able to cope with changes in a timely and competitive manner. Without, again, key word here is competitiveness. It needs to have three pillars: economic, environmental, and social. And we must remember that our agriculture and food industry means that the EU is one of the largest food producers in the world, ensuring food security and providing millions of jobs to Europeans. In addition, since we are stewards of the land, we EU farmers need to make sure that we are able to manage the transition proposed by the European Commission. We are willing to help in meeting these targets that are set by the Green Deal to make sure we address climate change. We need to protect the environment and we need to preserve biodiversity. And we have a stake in this. We would like our children to continue running our farms, and so therefore we are the most interested in this. Nonetheless, any change going forward should be accompanied by an appropriate holistic impact assessment that is able to cover the three sustainability pillars. We must also remember the crucial role of agriculture and farming when it comes to providing long-term solutions and ensuring food security, but also non-food security for EU citizens. There are also social and economic aspects to farming which should be taken into account during discussions. And under the Green Deal and the Farm to Fork umbrellas, we believe that farmers should be at the very center of the discussion. We are stakeholders, but we're also consumers of these products. When we talk about protecting crops, we like to remind our public that to make sure that our plant health is ensured. Well, apologies. Plant health is a cornerstone of our activity, and it happens regardless of our production methods. We advocate for any different methods, whether conventional, biotechnological, organic, etc. If we have to produce on Mars or Jupiter, we will do so. We will adapt to whatever is required of us, but we ask to be part of this discussion and for our perspective to be taken into account. And also, as part of our job, we need to be able to have access to PPPs, regardless of where they come from and how they are applied, to make sure that we can ensure our production the best possible way and make sure that we meet consumer demand. However, we do need these tools that we make reference to. Proper use of plant protection tools is important when it comes to maximizing our yields, because resources have to be used in the most cost-effective way to make sure that the carbon footprint is reduced, to make sure it is as small as possible. However, we farmers feel, and we have felt this way over the last few years, that our toolbox has become depleted and without any alternatives to it. To make sure we bridge this gap and to make sure that we ensure our competitiveness in this the hard globalized, very difficult globalized market, we need to make sure we have PPPs at hand. Let us not forget that farmers have already applied integrated pest management under Directive 2009/128 on sustainable use of pesticides. And this already prevents excessive use of chemical pesticides and therefore leans towards low-risk substances and selected crop techniques. IPM combines various agricultural practices to reduce the impact of agriculture on the environment. It could be crop rotation, targeted spraying, and this is something that's important to talk about. Also, implementation of resistant cultivars, soil management, seed protection, and so on, which is the very beginning of things. Farmers should also have access to the right toolbox. And this has to be able to develop further through cutting-edge scientific progress. This was said this morning. We follow what EFSA says, whether it's positive or negative. If they're positive, of course, we accept them and we put them into practice. And if they're negative, we will have to accept them either way. We cannot go against scientific evidence and also our own scientific evidence, which is tax-funded. We also welcome the PPP production sector in their commitment to help us attain our objectives, our targets, and to make sure that our crops are treated in the best possible way. Also, following the as less as possible, as much as necessary principle. In this regard, we feel that innovation is key, as it was said this morning, to help farmers achieve the next levels of sustainability, provided that we follow these strategies that have been mentioned. However, all the innovations coming from scientific research must reach the market in a practical and affordable way to make sure that we farmers are able to implement them, readily implement them in our farms. And the alternatives that we might see going forward to fill the gaps due to the withdrawal of certain tools that we have seen, well, there needs to be combined solutions. There is not a one-size-fits-all sort of solution, but there's a cluster of solutions, let us say. And so, therefore, there are many different stakeholders that need to take part in this. To give you some elements, for example, it could be agronomic practices or spraying techniques, which we have already seen, and some that are to come, digitalization, data sharing technologies, research when it comes to new crops or new agricultural markets. And for this reason, we are grateful for the opportunity that the INNOSETA project is giving us within the EU. It offers farmers to take part, to work alongside European researchers and universities of repute, as you saw this morning, and most of all, putting on the table the experiences of the different producing areas in Europe, so that we can see how science can help us achieve feasible results in the field that help us safeguard our production at the same time as we're able to help populations settle in rural areas. When, for example, we talk about rural abandonment, well, the last person to leave rural areas is the farmer. However, if no support is given to farming, then of course they will have to leave rural areas too. And we would like to remind you as well that farmers and cooperatives in Europe are already applying innovative solutions on our farms. As much as possible, this is to make sure that our business is sustainable and competitive. However, we insist that we need to continue investing in innovation, regardless of where the funds are coming from. And here, I would like to tell you the following. This is something that was said repeatedly this morning, that the word pesticide. Pesticide came up quite a lot, and I don't understand. I think we have incorrect terminology here. My grandfather, I remember the 1980s, late 1970s, when he used to come from the fields, he said, I've just applied poison on the fields. And older people talk about poison when they talk about pesticides. My father, in the 80s, early 90s, he said that he just applied pesticides. I was told to use plant protection product, and this is an error. From the very beginning, we should have said plant medicine. Just as human beings need medicines to make sure their health is better and to make sure that expectancy is longer, the same happens with plants. They also need medicines, same as humans. We take, for example, antibiotics. We take the right dose at the right time for the right reason. Plants function in the very same way. And so this is what we are calling for here. We need to make sure that these are referred to as plant medicines or plant health products. If there's no medicine for plants, there's no protection, there's no plant health, and so we will have a life expectancy of perhaps 40, 50, and not the 80 years of age that we enjoy nowadays. And so I would like to reiterate the importance of continuing the information exchange between farmers, researchers, and other stakeholders through thematic networks and also as presented today by INNOSETA. In this regard, we need to make sure that all stakeholders or organizations involved, including farmers, get a return in terms of added value created by this platform, and to make sure that this is reflected throughout the entire EU value chain, from research to farming to consumers. And that's all from me. I would like to once again thank you for inviting me on behalf of Copa Cogeca. I would like to thank Emilio Gil for this very heartfelt invitation, and also for the amazing work carried out by Paula de Vera as Copa Cogeca coordinator. Thank you very much.
And practical examples. So the time has come to move to our second panel, and for that I will invite our four speakers. Two of them are joining us online. That is Daniele Rossi from Confagricoltura. Daniele, are you there?
No.
No.
This is Jeremy.
And we have Jeremy Dyson from CropLife Europe. Hi, Jeremy. I can see you on my screen, so I know you are online. We'll see whether we can reach out to Daniele. And then we have two more participants in the room. Ivo Hostens from SEMA, the European Agriculture Machinery Organization. And, of course, Emilio Gil, whom you've seen before, who doesn't need any introduction anymore. Gentlemen, if I could ask you to take your seats. And I'm going to invite Professor Paolo Balsari from University Torino to lead this discussion. Paolo? Have a seat. And here are your mics.
Can you hear me? Yes. I don't know if Daniele Rossi is being able to reach us. Here you cannot see me. Here is correct? Okay. Well, also from my side, thanks to Emilio to invite me to make this strange work for me, to be a moderator, but I hope in this limit time to be able to improve the discussions. I have a general question to all of you that is related to your personal feeling concerning the pro and con about this project. So we know that now we are at the end of a project. For sure, there are quite a lot of positive aspects, but as always happens, maybe there are also something that could be improved, maybe also in future, so thanks to this experience. So I will give the floor maybe first to Jeremy, because all this person that has been presented has been actively part of a project. So I will ask please them to give a very point of view in terms of the positive and eventually negative aspect of a project. Jeremy, please.
Okay. First of all, thank you to Emilio and all the organizers of this event. Please, can you let me know that you can hear me okay?
Yes, perfect.
Yes, good. You want pros and cons. I think the most outstanding pro of this project, and I consulted with some of my colleagues on this, and they told me they actually used this website, bringing a lot of the information together, and a lot of that is about advice. And I think not just at the high end, there's some at the low end. I think this is one of the outstanding things because there is a lot of information across Europe, and trying to bring it all together in one site where people can look at it is outstanding. And I think the key benefit for this is really the advisors who need to look at all this and then develop their programs of advice. If there's any con, maybe that's not the right word, is also the challenge of course, and we've just had a farmer speaking to us now, is getting that beyond the advisors and getting it to the farmer in a way in which they can really use and are enthusiastic about putting that into practice. And I remember in the similar vein, closed transfer systems, we had a farmer, I saw a farmer from the UK, and he was talking about using this system, and he was asked at the end, what's the thing that really ticks the box apart from just getting your personal safety better? He said, the fact is that this is done in such a way, when I'm out spraying, I can save nearly an hour a day. So yes, get some investment in the closed transfer systems or the other things, but get something that really also is shown to me in a way in which I can say, I want to do this. It's not possible with everything, but I think when we search for these things, farmers are generally more positive to put these things into practice and say, I didn't know I could do it like that.
Thank you, Jeremy. Ivo?
Yeah, thank you, Paolo. Pros and cons of the project. I think in general, as you all know, expertise is scarce. So finding it over Europe and bringing them together and talking about such specific topic is of course in itself an enormous added value. And of course it's great that the Commission can support that within such projects. And I think the result of it is as well very good, of course, and should be somehow cherished. And that, I think, brings me then, of course, to the con part. And I think we know that the jury is still out on what we're going to do with the tool that we developed. And I think that's a criticism, not to this project. I think it's a criticism in general that we have a lot of these projects, thematic networks and others, like, for instance, also digital innovation hubs, etc. Like, what happens afterwards? And we have been in a number of these, like smart eggs, etc., really going to a lot of summations of a lot of technologies. You do evaluations on them, and then afterwards, it's just dies. And certainly from our industry, we are like looking at this in the same way, like this not going to be, I would say, sustainable unless there is also from European side more, I would say, fundamental strategic support to bring all that somehow together and harmonize as well a bit the inputs of many of these tools that we have. Maybe we can go a little bit deeper into that in the questions, but I think it's a critical question. And I think it's also for me the main con actually, that we do all that work and what is going to be the result within 5 years, say. So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Emilio, I mean, for you, for sure. But you have for sure the position to have a global figures of all the project as coordinator, so you can very well understand also the positive and eventually negative aspects.
Sure, as everything in this life, we have positive and negative aspects. From the positive, first of all, is the opportunity we enjoy during 3.5 years to work together once more. As I said before, yesterday, most of us, we were already friends since years, and now that recently arrived, even with COVID, we have been able to enjoy a very nice experience. All together, all the stakeholders in cross collaboration with farmers, manufacturers, advisors, and local authorities. As a positive aspect of China with this project, of course, we realize that we have plenty of technology. We are safe. We have everything, mostly everything is already available. And this is something it's right now clearly organized in the platform. And also, from the positive aspect, we had the opportunity to see and to know the opinion of the sector. Why, or which are the main problems for the adoption of new technologies, which are the main problems for the implementation of European legislation, which is not so easy in most of the cases. And of course, as a negative aspects, again, as Ivo mentioned, sustainability is the most tricky point, and we are trying to find the solution. And another negative aspect, we had this discussion during coffee break with Eric as well, data management. So we are managing some, let's say, personal data or private data. It's not a research project. We are not developing something which is our purpose, our property. We are managing data of course, with a very positive objective, but it seems that it's really complicated how to solve this problem.
Thank you very much. So we don't have yet Rossi with us. It's a pity about that. So if I can also put my opinion about positive and negative, I have to say that probably it's difficult to find negative. My personal point of view is not related to a negative aspect, but something that maybe we can try to improve. During these days, and also in the video, we have pushed a lot on the very important aspect that is the platform. So platform is the essential, is the core of this project. But also yesterday, at the end of the day, we have listened something very interesting, that is the opinion of a final user, what they need, what they wanted to have. And I believe this is really a resource of our project that probably we need to better disseminate and improve. Because in this project, for the first time, really we go to the final user, we ask them what you need, what you wanted, what is the technology you believe have much more possibility to be used and developed, what are the obstacles, and so on. So we really need to disseminate this data, to consider this data, especially to the decision maker people, because really we reach quite a lot all around Europe of persons, of farmers, and it's really needed to have also a benefit about that. So this is not a negative aspect, but probably for the future just insist and try to disseminate this. But going to other general aspect, I will ask to all of you, especially to Ivo and Jeremy, we have seen several in INNOSETA platform new technology. How you think it will be possible from your entity as SEMA and as CropLife, be possible to disseminate them, and which are the SETA, the technology for which you believe there is much more interest or possibility to be developed, to be inserted in a short time in the market? Jeremy, we'll start you, please.
Okay, from the point of view of CropLife Europe, of course, we started an initial project on this, TOPS, which INNOSETA has built on enormously, and CropLife Europe is changing a lot, but it's made a commitment, several commitments to the 2030 in response partly, obviously, to the farm to fork strategy and all the other green aspects. But a key one there is building training and recognizing that farmers are really at the heart of this and they have to put it into practice. So they've made a very specific commitment to try build on that. Obviously other projects like INNOSETA will do that. And when it comes to some of that is dealing with old technology, obviously, clearly the better farmers put that into practice, the better. But a lot of the very new high-tech technology coming in with precision agriculture, this is actually there to actually help implement what is put in the Sustainable Use Directive, making sure you apply only what's needed in the right place at the right time. So I think a lot of those developments in spray technology will come in there, but obviously that takes time. I think one of the key things there for some of those farmers who may look at this new equipment saying, I would love to have that equipment, but I'm afraid in these hard times I can't afford it. So some of the question there in the implementation of the strategy, the Green New Deal, is where is the investment in the kind of infrastructure that farmers need to do that? And clearly part of application technology, whether it be the sprayer or right through to the higher end of GPS directed systems, is there to improve that. And that will enable you to both reduce what's applied in the field and get more of it exactly on the target, which is of course what's needed. When we was mentioned earlier on, we have antibiotics or even paracetamol. We expect those, when we take them, to hit the target, and usually that means we open our mouth and we can hit the target quite precisely, and this is the great thing coming through with application technology. It's like putting the tablet on our mouth, and we're getting more and more of those things coming in, but it does need investment for farmers to be able to purchase such equipment.
Thank you, Jeremy. Just the comments about this. I mean, you very well focus about the importance to reach the target, but beside technology, you don't believe that a good training activity can improve the target reached by the person that apply pesticide?
Yes, good training is in there, and one of the first things on good training is raising awareness. I always remember, and I think it was an event with you, Professor Balsari, where there was a Professor Heribert Koch saying, when he was talking to farmers about orchards, and the first thing he did on raising their awareness over spray drift is saying to the farmers, why are you spraying the sky? And immediately getting the farmers' attention to say, I need to direct that. Even without really high-tech equipment, I can actually improve this, and this is for my benefit, not just to reduce contamination in the environment. I get a benefit out of this, realizing, that this is what the product was for.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Jeremy. Ivo, what is your opinion about more, from your point of view, more ready to be put on the market or to be disseminated SETA, and how you believe you as SEMA will try to improve the dissemination?
Well, of course, you have the normal answer would be, of course, precision tools. The more we go for spot-specific and variable rate, etc., this will really help. But maybe I rather put it on decision support tools. Why? Because at the end you have to convince people that putting a plant protection product on a very specific spot will help. It means you have to understand that, and you have to have the insight where and when to spray. And decision support tools will help you. Even though you might not have an advanced sprayer, you can have much higher insight by combining information about your soil, and then of course about how the crop health in general is. And based on that, even with simple sprayers, maybe you can already have a much lower input of pesticides, because you know much better that it's not necessary at a certain moment to spray, for instance. And it's also like combining it to better information, of course, which is of course something that in a lot of countries is under development. So I think that's why I would put the focus on decision support, just as something that people can, I would say, motivate, that to take then a step further and say, well, actually my sprayer cannot do what I actually want to do because I have no such insight, but can I really do it in the field? And that's I would say a completely different way of thinking of motivating people to act and do the investment. Because I heard it from some people, like from Manfred as well. He says like, the investment as such is not an issue because it is already a very capital intensive sector, but it's like, I mean, the benefits are so small, so can I be sure that this will really add up for me? And that's a crucial question, of course, and that's where these, I would say, more simpler tools and less, I would say, expensive tools can help to bring that knowledge to farmers. You also wanted to have the question on more in specific on the tool itself.
No. Well, I would like to know how SEMA could disseminate in future the INNOSETA platform and also try to, as you suggested, to improve the use of decision support system in a real way to a farmer.
Of course, as SEMA as such, and I think it's the main problem we have here, is that we're doing this on a European level, but the actual place where it takes place and what the actions and the decisions are taken is on a national level. So how to bring that then down? There are the initiatives of the ECIS, but there is also, I think, the more general question, that is, how can we make a tool that is sustainable for attracting more input in a cost-effective way? We now make a web tool, it's front end, it's a back end, and yes, in the back end you already use methodologies from the AEB Agri in order to collect information. So there is a kind of logic in there that is already known. But at the end, the formats, etc., it's not like machine readable. Somebody has to add it in. So if you ask them for providers to add it in, they will think twice if they don't really know what the added value will be in the long term. And that's where I think many of our members would struggle in the future. And I think it's also the issue, of course, of the evaluation. I think we cannot just allow everybody to just put information there. We already had this. That we had to do a very strict evaluation of everything that was put on there, that we don't have doubles, that the information provided stays within the limits, etc., and that the language is concise, etc. If you want this to survive, if you want this for the long term, we keep needing such a consortium to do that. And of course, all of you will go back to your other projects, etc., so who will have the time to do it? That's, I think as well, yeah, we have to try it, that's definitely, but I think that's also like, what is the long-term planning then as well from the Commission, to really, what do we want to do on the European level, so that we have something that can work on the European level as a kind of political tool as well, to understand what's out there within policies, and then how can we make a translation more to the national level, that it can be embedded in the national strategies as well. And that's also a question, I think, to a lot of you who are active within your own states, member states, on will this get a place within such strategies and these national plans?
Thank you very much. Before I leave the floor to Emilio, I just wanted to mention that I was addressed by the organizer that unfortunately, to Emilia Rosso, for a last minute problems could not join us. So I'm sorry, but we lost him for this roundtable. Emilio, please.
Yes, I would like to add something. We have been working here during the last 2 days, and we have been discussing about new technologies, new developments, spectacular machineries. We have a good representation of SEMA, of spray manufacturers in general. But let me put my hat as a professor, training. So if you remember the figures Basso already presented yesterday, the second most category most visited is training. And farmers in general, when they are realize that they can find very simple tools, as Ivo mentioned, some DSS free of charge, some calibration disc, some tutorials, some videos. My son, when he tries to do something, he goes to YouTube and find a tutorial for everything. So INNOSETA is plenty of tutorials about how to calibrate the sprayer, how to reduce drift, how to adjust the air assistance, but the most important, in 8 different languages. I had the opportunity to work very close with a lot of colleagues in South America. I've been working, giving training and extension in Argentina, in Peru, in Brazil, in Uruguay. In all those countries, they really love INNOSETA. And the main aspect is this, most of this, or all these aspects are in Spanish. So this is absolutely important. We don't need farmers, they don't need to invest a fortune to have for free this dosa viña, for example, or the calibration disc, as Ivo mentioned. Of course, we have technology, but this is also precision farming.
Thank you, Emilio. I would like to go back a little about what was mentioned by Ivo concerning decision support system, because also you, Emilio, now mainly mentions about decision support system to improve what we used to call calibration or adjustment of the sprayers. But what about decision support system related to some information on about when and how to use the pesticide? So what is the right time and what is the correct type of pesticide to be used? So I would like to ask Jeremy if this is something that we lost to insert in our platform, is important, is not so important, so we can avoid to have it, or you suggest to improve the platform also with this kind of decision support system. So the chemical part of the decision support system, just to be more clear. Jeremy.
Yes, I think here in INNOSETA, and I know with TOPS a lot was for CropLife Europe was going across the companies, so there was nothing specific about products on it. But obviously, at the end of the day, the farmer has to make a decision about which product to use and why and where and when. And I think all the individual companies do a lot on decision support on that. How much INNOSETA can do that in the future would be a good thing to know, that if the farmer sees what are the options that I have, I may have options 1, 2 or 3, and maybe within that decision support there's often different reasons farmers want to use and different objectives. So the decision support needs to interact with what are the farmers' objectives on this. And I remember seeing not about spray technology, but it was about conservation agriculture. And the first question on that was, what are the farmers' objectives in this? What does he want to achieve, or she want to achieve? So I think if you can get some decision support systems that open that out to someone, because obviously, the EU has some goals which it wants to achieve, and if they can be made in line with those. And that's not perhaps such a clear answer that you want, but I think increasingly people will get advice from companies, and maybe with spray manufacturers, I don't know, that can look at those decisions a lot more. I think people concentrated more in the past as what can you use, and they're focusing more on how can you use it and in what way.
Thank you, Jeremy. If I were a member, during our workshop, one of the main aspects that was underlined by the attendants was the operator safety. They asked for SETA, and were very interested in SETA concerning operator safety. And one of the requests, I remember, was addressed to CropLife, and they say why CropLife did not realize a decision support system concerning how to use appropriate personal protective equipment for the different type of product. I know that several years ago a chemical company have realized this, but just for his product. So could be something that CropLife could realize in future for improve the safety of the operator?
Yeah, I think they're certainly doing a lot of those, particularly where they get the more generic aspects. One I mentioned earlier on was closed transfer systems, where they've reduced the, if you will, different competing systems to get a single closed transfer system which all farmers can use. So it's not in that area an area of direct competition, because the focus has got to be on the first and foremost on the farmer safety. I think what you may well find is that a lot of mixture products are there, so a lot of information is shared between companies if they have mixture products, and so there will be some crossover there. But I think you can broadly say with certain types of chemical groups, a lot of the advice or the stewardship advice is very, very similar in that respect. But I think in terms of CropLife, they can't give specific information on individual products because that's breaking competition law. But a lot of the things are nevertheless quite generic in certain senses and can be talked about in that sense, and people can see the decisions from there and ask their own manufacturer or crop protection advisor to go through with that.
Thank you. A questions to Emilio that is not, I think, an easy questions, but several times has been underlined also this morning, and also from Ivo now with his answer concerning the necessity to try to have INNOSETA platform going ahead also after the end of the project. So, Emilio, this could be something possible, and if yes, how you think it could be managed, this aspect, but it's very important. So I know not an easy question, but we would like what is your thinking about that and what could be the possibility?
My thinking or my dream, yeah. So, of course, as we have been discussing, and I also addressed you some words yesterday, there is no sense to invest a lot of money from public funding from the European Commission in such a project, not only in INNOSETA, but other projects as well. And then 3 years' time, when the project is finished, we have this nice tool, or not so nice tool, but we have INNOSETA, and then what will happen? No? We can put into a dark box. So, in my opinion, there is no sense. On June, we celebrate this networking activity with another 11 or 12 projects already started in the same topic, and in the conclusions, all of those, we have the same concern about what will happen at the end of the project, who will take care of this or that. So this is the situation. We already started to talk about this in the beginning of the project, no? Thanks to some comments from the advisory board. And we have been starting to think about different possibilities. Unfortunately, or fortunately, at the end, like mostly everything in the life, is a question of money. So we need money to finance some time to be in front of the platform, to update the platform, to check the platform, and to disseminate the platform. What I don't want to go to the end, me as a project coordinator, I don't want to convert this platform in a commercial platform. It means I don't like to see INNOSETA in green color or in blue color or in yellow color. So we have some ideas. What I would like to have is some, let's say, objective or aseptic association, could be FEMA, could be whatever, taking care of that. Could be a public university, as in our case, with some support. But this is the situation is like it is right now. So I already answered your first question, Paolo, but the second, no. I have no idea how to continue. I'm already been in contact with some official services from the European Commission, which is trying to deal with those problems. So as I already told you yesterday, whatever suggestion will be more than welcome. But I'm really pushing, try to maintain INNOSETA as much as possible.
Okay, consider your recommendations. I will open the discussion also to the people around this table and also for the people that is online. So please, if you have any question to the people that are here, Jeremy, Ivo, and our coordinator, Emilio. We start from the room inside here. Tom?
Thank you, Tom Bell. Tom Bell's here representing SEMA. It's a question really primarily for Jeremy Dyson, and it is. I'm a great believer in decision support systems. But one of the problems we currently face is certainly the advice on pesticide labels for bush and tree crops and even greenhouses are basically deficient in their advice. I think most of the multinationals committed about a decade ago to moving to tree row wall, which is a compromise. It's still not ideal. But I understand lots of labels still do not give decent application advice. This is something that really needs to be tackled by all stakeholders. It's not just the chemical industry, but it is a starting point in trying to give reasonable advice on these crops. And I just make the point of what Paolo and Emilio always do. This crop sector is huge. In southern Europe in particular, there are far more bush and tree crop sprayers than boom sprayers, and the risks to both human health and the environment are greater potentially than from boom sprayers. Thanks.
Yes, maybe. Well, Jeremy, can you answer? Are you here?
Yeah, I'm still here. Good question. And I know all the time that I've been in TOPS, the thing that Emilio has always highlighted most strongly, and as well as yourself, is that really the big area is really the vertical crops, much more than the traditional crops like wheat or so. I think one of the things that I've certainly seen in the company that I work in is a lot more attention to looking at labels, to thinking about the stewardship. It's not just what gets registered, it's much more about how. I think probably frustratingly for you, this is a long drawn out process, but I think the industry is getting to focus a lot more on these and saying, it's not just about what gets registered, it's how you use it that really counts. And I think, what you're saying here is you highlight something very important. I know CropLife Europe looked at greenhouses, and it's a very diverse area to look at, right from the most sophisticated greenhouses in let's say Holland or somewhere to something that's quite different. And I think it would be good then, I don't know whether or not INNOSETA could start actually bringing some of the guidance together with those things for greenhouses and other crops like that, because it is a very important area. I'm not sure that fully answers your question, but I think it's certainly something for me to take back to CropLife Europe and to highlight that to them, that this is really an area of, the continuous improvement that goes on all the time. And, as I just repeat, what the people in INNOSETA on such crops have said all along. These are the things we really need to focus on. As I said about Heribo-Koch, spraying the sky, that means there's exposure going on that really is not supposed to be on that label and is not compliant with the label use. I don't know from the point of view of from SEMA what you could advise on that as a way forward. Throwing the question back.
I've been delegated to answer that one as well. I think the answer is it is a multi-stakeholder problem. I mean, it's platforms like INNOSETA which do it. It's not looking at it from just one context. It's looking at it from the PPP manufacturer, the sprayer manufacturer, the farmer. It needs to be brought together to do exactly what has been said at the INNOSETA. You have practical advice that can be given to farmers. We understand what their needs are and what they're looking for calibration tools, etc. It is a critical issue. I've been involved in the industry for 40 years, had much discussion over 40 years, and also we're getting closer and the debate is improving. We are still not there, and that is really not good enough.
And I think, just building on what you're saying, you remind me there of the importance of getting all the different stakeholders there. It's usually things in relationships, if you will, because these are all about relationships at the end of the day. It's not getting stuck into it's your fault, not my fault. It's actually when everyone says together, actually, this is our problem, this is our issue to do with, and that's when solutions start to take place. Because if you go through a blame game, you're actually not progressing and saying what's realistic. And I've seen things in other areas where surprising results come out by actually saying this is our problem, this is what we have to sort out, rather than going to extremes on things.
Okay, thank you, Emilio. You want to add something?
Yes, Paolo, thank you. You too could add a lot of things. Tom, I'm happy you opened the door to this critical discussion. Thanks. I would like to give a quick message. Link it with the material already in INNOSETA, because we could stay here for weeks discussing about the dose expression problem. But of course, there is no sense the message I give to my students is when my kid was a couple of 2 years old, I gave some spoon of medicine with one spoon, because the dose was 10 kilos of kit, right? Now my son is taller than me, so he needs 1 liter of the same medicine. So is there any sense having in the pesticide labels recommendations based in 1,000 liters per hectare? Or, on the other side, based on concentration? We have some difficulties, legal problems in Spain, because farmers have to record the data. And I have good examples, real examples of farmers that they follow our suggestions and they can reduce the amount of pesticide, they can reduce the volume rate with a well-adjusted sprayer and with a very well high-tech technology you produce from SEMA, and then the farmer is happy applying just 200 liters per hectare. But as the pesticide label says, you have to apply 1,000 liters, then it's a penalty. There is no sense. But this is linked with training, and INNOSETA is plenty of good examples about that.
Thank you. While Paolo retrieves his mic, unless you wanted to add something on this.
No, just I immediately give the floor to you, because I know that there are some questions from the online people. No, I just want to, this is an interesting discussion, as was the one about glyphosate, but seems to me we go a little out of the main topics that now is INNOSETA project and how we can improve it, what we have achieved up to now, and some new suggestions. So, please.
So just to give you a comment that we have received from one of our online participants, Sandro Liberatori, who says then the key word is really that the training has to be free of charge. It should also take into consideration foreign operators, or rather non-European operators and the language that they use. For instance, he suggests training in Arabic. And of course, it should also be user-friendly information. So maybe we'd like to have some comments from the two of you and also from Jeremy on these particular aspects, the type of training, the languages, and the user-friendliness.
Thank you. Salvatore, grazie. It's a really good question. That's the reason why I'm really proud of this. INNOSETA is already available in 8 different languages. It took a lot of effort, and it cost a fortune to translate it, everything, and we had internal discussions. But from my point of view, there is no sense to have only English, and that's all, because even me, I'm not an English speaker. I'm trying to do all my best. But you can imagine farmers from my villages trying to understand in English? No sense. Arab, why not? So I remember one of my extension activities in South America and in the US as well. They produced very nice pictures and drawings because operators, most of the responsible to apply pesticide, they had not the capability for reading. They cannot understood formulas for calibration. So this is really, really important. I absolutely agree with you, with Salvatore in this case.
Ivo, would you like to add something to this?
Certainly on translations and languages to be used, maybe I can just add that, of course, if countries outside of EU want to use it, it can be looked at, specifically on Arabic. I don't know, we have 21 languages already. We only translate in 8, so we're still a long way ahead of... yes, of course, sorry for that, absolutely. But yeah, we also think that, and that's something that many countries have when it comes to safety on the work floor. At least you have to know one language. Often there is some efforts being done to accommodate for when you have a lot of workers on the floor, but I think let's focus first on 21st languages in Europe before we move outside.
Thank you. Jeremy, did you have a comment to make on that particular proposal?
Well,
either the
I
languages
think
or
anything
the
where you get messages out or with videos, which can be very good. I remember I, similarly myself, used a YouTube video to fix my car key, which would have cost me hundreds of euros to fix. But I think one of the things there is to get some very simple messages, obviously in an appropriate language, because even if someone maybe uses English or some other language, they can very easily get it slightly wrong and get the wrong end of the stick, as they say. The other day I had an operation in hospital and I was trying to read the German and I got the translation slightly wrong and asked my wife and said, oh, this said there was a complication in the surgery. And she said, no, they're saying it was not complicated. There were no complications. And I could have gone completely the wrong way. And I've seen this happen in many cases. And I made a mistake. So this is absolutely vital, that people get simple messages that cannot be mistaken when they're translated into an appropriate language.
Thank you. Paolo, I think the time has come to wrap up, but I'll give you the final word then for your panel.
Thank you very much. Well, I have just to thank all of you and just to underline that personally are more than satisfied about this project. But for sure, with this project, we have just put also it's a pretty big stone, but just one stone, try to improve the diffusion of technologies to the final user, but it's really needed, and for this we need the help of all of you, I mean all the institutions involved, also with the DG Agri and DG Sante, to try to go ahead in this direction. So we mentioned also yesterday we need, when possible, to have a continuous update of the platform. We need to improve the training, also our training materials. and we need also to disseminate the INNOSETA platform, because this is very, very essential. So thanks again, and I hope we can have a success. Sometimes success you don't reach immediately at the end, but after some years, so maybe in 2 years, we can say, okay, we have done a good job because we get what we thinking was needed to get. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paolo. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Ivo. And thank you, Emilio. But don't go too far, because I'm going to hand over to you again for a few concluding remarks.
Thanks to all of you again. I don't want to push you anymore. We are, all of us, we are tired after 2 days discussing about it. I think it has been a couple of days, very nice, very intensive day. I would like to give my thanks, official thanks, to the European Commission, to Klaus, to Gisela, also Clara from the European Parliament. She came here, she made the effort. We have been working together with Clara, trying to organize this event inside the European Parliament, as I told you yesterday, but finally in the last minute it was impossible. But we are here in a very nice facilities. And I would like to especially thanks, because he's with us today. Yesterday he was following us online, to my friend Eric Lijois is here, because he, since the beginning, Eric, you believe on the INNOSETA. You push me, you push to our colleagues, and because you thought that there was really an interesting project, really useful project, and as a coordinator, having this support from the European Commission officially, but from Eric in a personal way, that encouraged me to continue working. So I think all together we made something useful, and I hope that we will continue working on it. So really appreciate, muchas gracias. And then, as we shared, our colleague Monica as well. Monica, she was in the commission, then she was directly involved in INNOSETA during the pandemic. So it was really funny, because she was based in Zaragoza, I was based in Barcelona, and she was working for INNOSETA for some months, and then she came back to the European Commission. Also, she's guilty for the Eric is here, and Karin was here yesterday. Thank you, muchas gracias, Monica. And to all of you, just once more, thanks a lot. We will push you, especially from representatives from the manufacturers as well. Thanks, Jeremy. We've been working since years also with the pesticides companies, because all together I think we could help the farmers at the end. And once more, as I already did yesterday, thanks to Paula and Elena, because they made a great job in the organization of this event. When I came here early this morning, not so early, but I came really nervous because taxi never arrived to the hotel. I arrived 1 hour later, so it was a strike on the metro. After 3 months working to organize this event, so I say, I have no taxi. I was really nervous. So, but at the end, I think everything has been okay. Thanks a lot to everyone, and I give the floor to our driver of the event. She made a great job. Fantastic. Thank you so much. And see you in the next project, or at least during lunch. Thank you.
Thank you, Emilio. So, well, the time has come to say goodbye. Indeed, thanks to all of you, I think we managed to not only more or less keep in time, but have a very lively event and some very open exchanges, in particular in both panels. So thanks again for that. Those of you who are faring home, have a safe trip back. And for those of you following us online, have a nice rest of the day. I would like to thank our interpreters as well, because they certainly made this possible for quite a few people. So that does make a difference. Thank you very much for your contribution. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it from us. So take care, stay safe, and see you next time. Bye-bye.